Chapter 488. The Earth Dragon Ancestor said faintly, Jean, return to the Dragon Valley with this little girl first. Jidong will train with me, and he will definitely grow faster. This way, he will be able to command the heavenly stem saints to protect the radiant five elements continent. From the tone of the Earth Dragon Ancestor, no one could tell that there was anything wrong with his words. However, the fact that he wanted Jidong to stay behind was enough to confuse everyone. Was he really just trying to help Jidong improve his strength? Anyone would have doubts about this. Even the Dragon Emperor couldn't help but look at the Earth Dragon Ancestor hesitantly. Great Ancestor, Jidong once saved my child, and he is also my child's human companion. If he has offended you in any way, I hope you can forgive him. Jidong couldn't help but be stunned when he heard the Dragon Emperor's words. When he turned his head to look at the Dragon Emperor, a strange look appeared in his eyes, and his heart was filled with a faint warmth. At a time like this, the Dragon Emperor was willing to speak up for him. At the very least, the Dragon Emperor saw him as a friend. Jidong didn't understand why the Earth Dragon Ancestor wanted him to stay. Your Majesty, please rest assured. The reason I want him to stay is the same as the reason you constantly spar with him. I won't really hurt him. The Dragon Emperor hesitated for a moment before nodding. All right then, Great Ancestor. We will return to the Dragon Valley first. Jidong jumped down from the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon's head and gestured for it to send Chen Xishuan back. However, Chen Xishuan also jumped down and said to the Dragon Chamber, Your Majesty, can I ask a Dragon King to send me back to the Dragon Valley? Although Chen Xishuan didn't say anything to Jidong, everything she did made the dragons secretly nod in their hearts. Jean also understood after a brief moment of shock. She left the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon with Jidong so that it could protect Jidong in times of danger. At the same time, with the Dragon Emperor's descendant around, even if the Earth Dragon Ancestor wanted to harm Jidong, he would have to think twice. No matter what, the Earth Dragon Ancestor was a sinner of the Dragon Clan. He would always be wary of the Dragon Emperor's descendant. At the very least, he wouldn't really hurt the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon. Under such circumstances, it wasn't impossible for Jidong to escape. Although the Earth Dragon Ancestor was powerful, he couldn't leave his position. His body had already become one with the Three Harmony mountain range. The Dragon Emperor asked the Fire Dragon King to carry Chen Xishuan and bring Jean back to the Dragon Valley. Before they left, Jean glanced at Jidong and gave him a look. However, it was hard to say if Jidong could understand the meaning of the look. The dragons returned to the Dragon Valley. Only Jidong, the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon, and the Earth Dragon Ancestor that was like a huge statue were left. The Earth Dragon Ancestor's large yellow eyes stared at Jidong indifferently without saying anything. Jidong also stood there quietly, raised his head, and looked into the Earth Dragon Ancestor's eyes. A dense pressure radiated from the Earth Dragon Ancestor's eyes, and Jidong's spiritual world instantly felt a huge pressure. However, he was far from being a match for the Earth Dragon Ancestor in terms of demonic energy, but he was confident that he could put up a fight in terms of spiritual energy. He did not clash head-on with the Earth Dragon Ancestor directly. After all, the Earth Dragon Ancestor was at the peak of the Saint Realm, and being able to cultivate 3 different attributes meant that his cultivation was extremely close to the higher God Realm. Of course, because he had fused with the Three Harmonies mountain range, he would never be able to cultivate to the level of the God Realm. Perhaps the greatest possibility for him in the future was to cultivate 4 different attributes like the Darkness Divination and be 1 level away from the God Realm. After confirming that the Earth Dragon Ancestor's soul power was above his, Jidong chose to defend himself. Regardless of the Earth Dragon Ancestor's motive for keeping him here, Jidong's emotions were not affected at all. If the Earth Dragon Ancestor really wanted to accompany him in his cultivation, that would be a good thing. The Earth Dragon Ancestor was different from the Dragon Emperor. Be it in terms of cultivation or experience, it was stronger than the Dragon Emperor. What was even more different was that the Dragon Emperor could transform into a human and fight with Jidong, or use his huge and agile body to attack Jidong. However, the Earth Dragon Ancestor just stood there without moving. its fighting style would definitely be different as well. Obviously, a stronger pressure was what Ji Dong was looking forward to. Moreover, he could not think of any reason why the Earth Dragon ancestor would have any ill intentions towards him. He completely retracted his soul power into his brain and condensed it completely before withstanding the soul pressure brought by the Earth Dragon ancestor. He completely retracted his defense, so the soul power he consumed was naturally much less than the Earth Dragon ancestor. Although the pressure brought by the Earth Dragon ancestor was great, Ji Dong stood there with his back straight, showing no signs of backing down. After a short collision, the Earth Dragon ancestor couldn't help but reveal a look of surprise in his eyes. Good, your soul power has improved again, and it has improved by quite a lot. No wonder my daughter likes you. You are indeed a person who is good at creating miracles. Ji Dong naturally knew that his soul power had improved. However, in his consciousness, he attributed the great improvement of his soul power from the initial stage to the intermediate stage of the saint level, to the benefits brought by the second demon realm after his demon power had increased to the 8th stage. In fact, his thinking was completely wrong. Although the silver demon realm of fantasy was a spirit demon realm, it also borrowed from his original spiritual power. Because his spiritual power had already reached the saint level before his cultivation had increased to the 8th stage, there was a mutation when he obtained the demon realm. Thus, Ji Dong had this special second demon realm that belonged to him. However, it couldn't help Ji Dong to improve his soul power again. The saint-level soul power was even more difficult to cultivate than the saint-level demon power, because there was no suitable training method at all. It depended more on luck. For example, the current Dragon Emperor's cultivation had reached the intermediate stage of the saint level, but his soul power was still at the initial stage of the saint level. As for the Earth Dragon ancestor, it was unknown how many years of accumulation he had to reach the current high stage of the saint level, but he also couldn't reach the peak of the saint level. This was also why even the Earth Dragon ancestor was surprised when Ji Dong's soul power improved to the intermediate stage of the saint level, and he called it a miracle. The reason why Ji Dong's soul power improved was because of that night in the Hot Spring Hotel. That night, he and Chen Sichuan had become one, and they were truly united. In the depths of Chen Sichuan's soul, there was a trace of consciousness left behind by the flaming bar. When she and Ji Dong truly became one, their souls also intertwined like never before. Under such circumstances, her consciousness naturally stimulated Ji Dong's soul power continuously. It happened just in time for Ji Dong's magic power to break through to the 8th crown, and his soul power showed a blowout situation. That was why Ji Dong's soul power made another breakthrough. On the whole, Ji Dong's soul power could not possibly be compared to the Earth Dragon ancestor. However, under the situation where he did not seek to make any mistakes, and with his intermediate stage of the saint-level soul power, it was not that easy for the Earth Dragon ancestor to completely suppress him. This was also the reason why the Earth Dragon ancestor exclaimed in admiration. If Chen Sichuan and Ji Dong were here to carry out the soul fusion and fight against the Earth Dragon ancestor together, they might even be able to fight against the Earth Dragon ancestor on the soul level. In terms of soul manipulation skills, Ji Dong might not be as good as the Earth Dragon ancestor, but the Flaming Bar's age in this world was not much shorter than the Earth Dragon ancestors. Moreover, the Flaming Bar had once cultivated to the god level. If they were to fight, it was still unknown who would win. However, under such circumstances, how could the Earth Dragon ancestor use only his soul power to fight against the two of them? The pressure on his soul suddenly lightened. The Earth Dragon ancestor had retracted all of his pressure, and Ji Dong naturally controlled his own soul power. He did not counterattack just because the Earth Dragon ancestor had retracted his soul power. "Kid, I want to talk to you." The Earth Dragon ancestor looked at Ji Dong and said in a low voice. Ji Dong wanted to know the real reason why the Earth Dragon ancestor kept him alive. He said, "Senior, please speak." The Earth Dragon ancestor said, "I won't beat around the bush with you. I can feel that my daughter likes you." "What do you say? Jean likes me?" Ji Dong was stunned. He looked at the Earth Dragon ancestor and was momentarily speechless. The Earth Dragon ancestor snorted and said, What? Is my daughter not good enough for you? Brat, let me tell you, it doesn't matter if you're willing or not. In any case, I can't see my daughter grieving. Otherwise, even if I have to give up my life, I'll still be able to kill you no matter where you run to. The Saint Evolution Fire Dragon, who was not far behind the old woman, raised its two heads at the same time and looked at the Earth Dragon ancestor with unfriendly eyes. It was obvious that it did not have a good impression of this ancestor. In their hearts, Jidong was the most important. Jidong said in a low voice, "Senior, I'm afraid we won't be able to reach an agreement on this matter. I already have a lover, and I have never thought of accepting another woman's feelings." The Earth Dragon ancestor said, "Is it that girl just now?" He was naturally referring to Chun Si Xuan. Jidong shook his head and said, "No, it's not her. You should know who my lover is." "You mean the Flaming Bar Queen? Isn't she already dead?" The Earth Dragon ancestor said angrily. Jidong looked straight at the Earth Dragon ancestor. Facing the number one powerhouse of the Dragon Clan, he did not show any signs of fear or cowardice. He asked in return, "Senior, Jin's mother has been dead for many years. Have you ever forgotten her?" When the Earth Dragon ancestor heard Jidong mention his true love, Tianji, for a moment, his emotions fluctuated greatly. Jidong said indifferently, "The feelings between me and the Flaming Bar can't be separated by life and death. If it wasn't for the fact that she had a dying wish for me to complete, I would have left with her a long time ago. If you want to make a move, go ahead. I'm no match for you. If you kill me, I should be thanking you instead. After all, this isn't my death that I wish to die. If you send me to the side of the Flaming Bar probably won't blame me for it. Come." As he said that, Jidong put his hands behind his back. He did not even have the slightest intention of resisting. He puffed his chest and faced the Earth Dragon ancestor. Even though his body was so small compared to the Earth Dragon ancestor, his aura was not any weaker than the other party. The Earth Dragon ancestor's eyes flashed with divine light. He had already raised one of his front claws, and a strong magical wave enveloped Jidong's body like a solid substance. No matter how strong Jidong's physical defense was, as long as the Earth Dragon ancestor's claws slammed down, the tyrannical magical power would instantly tear the defenseless Jidong into pieces. Jidong still looked calm, as if no matter what the Earth Dragon ancestor did, it had nothing to do with him. In his eyes, there was even a hint of relief. Everything that he said was actually not a single lie. Being able to meet the Flaming Bar in advance was something that he could not wait to happen. The Earth Dragon ancestor suddenly opened his mouth and took a deep breath. Instantly, the clouds in the sky fluctuated violently because of this deep breath. The dragon claw that was raised was finally lowered. With a cold snort, Hyoheim said, "Kid, don't think that I don't dare to kill you. I'm just afraid that killing you will make my daughter sad. However, you can be spared from death, but you can't escape punishment. If you want to leave this place, you'll have to rely on your own abilities. You can leave when you can calmly escape from me." Jidong looked at the Earth Dragon ancestor. What caused the Earth Dragon ancestor to be exasperated was that he could actually see a look of pity in this kid's eyes. It was as though Jidong was blaming him for not killing him. Just as the Earth Dragon ancestor was feeling depressed, Jidong's body suddenly flipped out without any warning and shot backward like a bolt of lightning. With this flip, he was like an arrow released from a bow. In the blink of an eye, he was on the back of the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon. Mao Tai and Wu Liang cooperated very well with Jidong. At the first moment, they activated their innate skill, transmigration. Their huge bodies seemed to have teleported. In the blink of an eye, they appeared 100 meters away. At this moment, they had already brought Jidong to a distance of almost 200 meters. This was not the end. Jidong's body flashed. In the instant that the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon stopped, he had already rushed forward again. Mao Tai and Wu Liang were spat out at the same time, propelling his body to speed up again. He rushed forward like a bolt of lightning. This speed was so fast that he was like a cannonball. According to Jidong's judgment, the Earth Dragon ancestor's strongest attack range should be within a radius of 1,000 meters. As long as he rushed out of this range, it would be much easier to escape his attack. Previously, when he was standing there talking to the Earth Dragon Ancestor, he was already about 100 meters away from the Earth Dragon Ancestor. Now that he flipped out and used the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon's transmigration skill, he was already 300 meters away from the Earth Dragon Ancestor. This time, with full acceleration and the full use of the Flying Serpent Flash, he was confident that he could rush out of this range before he needed to take a breath. As his cultivation level increased to the 8th crown, his Flying Serpent Flash could also be used for the 6th Flash. Unfortunately, his deity Slaying Strike was still stuck at the 5th realm. Even after the battle with Lin Ilay and Lin Qing, his deity Slaying Strike still showed no signs of leveling up. Chapter 489. Without a doubt, Jidong's reaction was extremely fast, and his strategy was extremely appropriate. After using his gaze to confuse the Earth Dragon Ancestor, he immediately made his move. When he finally used the 6th flash of the Flying Serpent to accelerate, the entire process only took a second. However, Jidong soon realized how terrifying the Earth Dragon Ancestor was. When he used the 3rd flash of the Flying Serpent Flash, he had already rushed out 500 meters away. Suddenly, a mountain appeared in front of him without any warning. That's right, it was a mountain. This mountain was more than 500 meters tall. It had always existed, but it shouldn't have appeared in Jidong's path. Even without using his eyes, Jidong wouldn't have chosen the wrong escape route by relying on his soul judgment. However, this mountain was right in front of him. This wasn't a mistake in Jidong's judgment, but the mountain had moved. It moved 300 meters horizontally in the air and quietly appeared in front of Jidong, blocking his path. Between sprinting 500 meters at full speed and moving a mountain 300 meters horizontally, it was clear which was easier and which was harder. The Earth Dragon Ancestor stood there, naturally unable to move. However, his eyes were filled with mockery at the moment. The mountain was right in front of him, and Jidong only had 2 choices. One was to forcefully pass through this mountain that had a diameter of no less than 300 meters, and the other was to change his route and climb over it. However, no matter which option he chose, it would undoubtedly greatly reduce his speed. At this moment, the Earth Dragon Ancestor was taken aback by Jidong's sudden change. He chose neither the former nor the latter. Facing the mountain that was blocking his path, he did not continue using Flying Serpent Flash. Instead, he pressed his palms together and mana surged out to slow down the speed of his charge. After that, he crashed into the mountain. Black and white Emperor lights shone from Jidong's hands at this moment. When his body landed on the mountain peak, both of his palms had already slashed out at the same time. It was as if he was engraving something on the mountain with the speed of the Flying Serpent Flash. Every time he slashed, he poured all of his mana into it without holding anything back. Good boy. The Ancestor of the Earth Dragon roared out in laughter. Jidong was once again shocked by the scene before him. A moment ago, that mountain peak that he had carved with a mysterious imprint had suddenly sunk down. That was a mountain peak that was 500 meters tall. In the blink of an eye, it had sunk into the ground and disappeared without a trace. The ground was flat, and there were even huge trees around. But that mountain peak had disappeared into thin air just like that. Then, a tyrannical suction came from the sky. Although Jidong used all his mana to resist, he was still being pulled back little by little. Even the Flying Snake Flash couldn't stop his retreat. Brat, you are indeed very cunning. You actually want to use the teleportation array to leave my place. Others may not recognize the 5 elements array, but do you think I don't? Oh, right. You still don't know, right? This 5 elements array was originally created by me with Yitianji's help. Although he should have spent a lot of time perfecting it and changing the 5 elements array, at the end of the day, its essence won't change. How can it hide from me? Jidong sighed in his heart. He had already stopped resisting and was pulled back by the power of the dragon claw of the Ancestor of the Earth Dragon. When his body was within 100 meters of the body of the Ancestor of the Earth Dragon, the suction naturally disappeared. I chose the wrong direction. I should have escaped into the sky. Jidong said with some regret. The Ancestor of the Earth Dragon chuckled and said, Why? Do you think that there's no power that can stop you if you escape into the sky? Let me tell you this. Unless you can escape to an altitude of more than 3,000 meters, or escape out of the 3 Unity mountain range on the ground, you won't be able to escape from me. Don't forget that I'm of the earth, water, and metal elements. Just watch. As he spoke, the large, yellow eyes of the ancestor of the earth dragon suddenly turned black. In the next moment, Jidong's expression changed drastically. That was because in the area they were in, the sky that had been extremely clear just a moment ago had turned pitch black. The huge, dark clouds filled one's heart with an oppressive feeling. Dense water elements gathered in the sky. The magnitude and pressure even exceeded that of the mountains that had moved and sunk in the sky. There was really no way out. If he wanted to escape from the obstruction of the ancestor of the earth dragon, he would probably have to rely on his own strength. The ancestor of the earth dragon said in a very gentle tone, "Kid, don't think that you can find a chance to escape after I fall asleep. That's impossible. I can either sleep for thousands or tens of thousands of years, or I can stay awake for thousands or tens of thousands of years. If you want to waste time with me, the lifespan of you humans is far from enough, unless you can cultivate to become a god. Otherwise." As he spoke, he even raised his dragon claw and waved it in front of Jidong in a very human-like manner. Jidong snorted and said nothing more. He sat down in front of the ancestor of the earth dragon and quickly entered into a state of cultivation. At that moment, his breathing was not even very uniform, but he was able to enter a state of cultivation so quickly. If an ordinary demon master were to see this, they would definitely be amazed. The ancestor of the earth dragon grinned and nodded in his heart. This kid is indeed talented. Even though he was provoked by my words, his will was not affected at all, as expected of the leader of the heavenly stem saints. He has the demeanor I had back then. However, why isn't this kid as philanthropic as I was back then? What's there to be afraid of when there are a few more women? Dragon Valley. At that moment, the Dragon Emperor was at the bottom of the valley with a group of heavenly stem saints standing in front of him. He closed his eyes as if he was sensing something. The heavenly stem saints, including Ajin, who had just returned, all had anxious looks on their faces. No one understood why the ancestor of the earth dragon had suddenly made Jidong stay. The ancestor of the earth dragon was so powerful. If he were to do something unfavorable to Jidong, it would not be easy to fight against him. Ugh. The Dragon Emperor let out a long sigh and slowly opened his huge dragon eyes. "How is it?" Ajin asked impatiently. The Dragon Emperor nodded gently and said, "Don't worry, Jidong will be fine. It seems like the ancestor really wants to help him improve his strength. That's why he made him stay. He doesn't have any ill intentions." Everyone believed in the Dragon Emperor's words. After hearing his words, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Although cultivation in the Dragon Clan was very boring, the Heavenly Stem Saints maintained a state of excitement. There was no other reason than the fact that cultivating here was much faster than cultivating outside. Every one of them was constantly improving. Every increase in their magic power would become the greatest motivation for them to continue cultivating. Moreover, they now had their own mounts. Being able to cultivate together with their mounts in the Dragon Valley was undoubtedly the best thing that could happen. This way, they would be able to become more compatible with their mounts in a short period of time. The Dragon Emperor smiled and said, "Then continue your cultivation. Elder Ajin, come with me. I want to announce your identity as an elder to the entire clan." When the ancestor of the earth dragon had first made him stay, Jidong was surprised and astonished. Especially when the ancestor of the earth dragon said that he would not be allowed to leave so easily. Jidong was even more furious. However, as time passed, Jidong realized that compared to the dragon monarch, the earth dragon ancestor was a more suitable sparring partner. Not only was it able to put more pressure on him, but it would also not take the initiative to attack him. It would only stop him when he tried to escape, and when he launched an attack, it would only block and not counterattack. With such an excellent sparring partner, even though the elemental essence concentration in the earth dragon ancestor was not as high as in the Dragon Valley, Jidong had the Tai Chi demon domain, so it did not affect him too much. Every day, Ji-dong would try to break through the ancestor of the Earth Dragon seal at least twice. He used all kinds of moves, but the ancestor of the Earth Dragon was really too strong. Ji-dong always felt like he was looking up to a mountain in front of it. No matter what he did, the ancestor of the Earth Dragon could block him. In the process of escaping with all his might every day, Ji-dong would be under great pressure. After failing to break through, he would immediately enter into a state of cultivation. While cultivating his demon power, he would seriously reflect on his gains and losses in the process of breaking through. This formed a virtuous cycle, allowing his cultivation to improve continuously. Ji-dong also had a backup plan. From the beginning until now, he had also used the demon realm, but it was limited to the Tai Chi demonic realm. His second demon realm, the Dream Silver, had never been used. Ji-dong was now very clear that he did not have the confidence to break through the ancestor of the Earth Dragon's seal. If he used the Dream Silver, he might be able to escape a certain distance, but he still could not escape the range of the ancestor of the Earth Dragon's control. Instead of that, it was better to wait for an opportunity and continue to break through when he was strong enough. 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. After 3 months of hard work, Ji-dong finally cultivated the deity Slaying Strike to the 6th realm as he wished. His demon power had also increased to level 82. As his realm continued to increase, the deity Slaying Strike brought more and more surprises to Ji-dong. The further he went, the harder it was to improve. However, with every increase in realm, the power of the deity Slaying Strike would become more terrifying. When he broke through the 3rd realm and entered the 4th realm, Ji-dong obtained the supplementary skill of the deity Slaying Strike, God Annihilation Attraction. When he broke through the 5th realm, there were no changes. However, when Ji-dong broke through the 6th realm, he obtained another skill of the deity Slaying Series. This skill was not as direct as God Annihilation Attraction, but if used properly, it would be even more marvelous. Now, Ji-dong was looking forward to the new skill when his deity Slaying Strike broke through to the next realm. The Earth Dragon ancestor was still standing there like a statue. As long as Ji-dong did not try to leave, it would not move. It was like a lone mountain. However, once Ji-dong made a move, it would always be able to react immediately. With its stronger soul power than Ji-dong's, it could predict Ji-dong's movements 1 step ahead. Currently, Ji-dong's highest record was to break through to a distance of 800 meters from it. This record had been maintained for a long time without any changes. Ji-dong, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, abruptly opened his eyes. In the next moment, his body had already shot towards the Earth Dragon ancestor like a cannonball. Right now, he was no longer just trying to escape. Sometimes, when he came up with some battle tactics or skill combinations, he would also use the Earth Dragon ancestor as a test subject. Against an opponent that he could not defeat no matter what, using it as a target was the most suitable. The instant Ji-dong leaned forward, the Earth Dragon ancestor's right front claw was already in front of its chest. It had already noticed when Ji-dong ended his cultivation. If the Dragon Emperor were to see this scene, he would definitely be shocked. In order to defend against Ji-dong's attack, the Earth Dragon ancestor actually had to raise its claw first. This was something that even a Tier 10 dragon could not do. The Earth Dragon ancestor had no choice but to do so. The reason was simple. Ji-dong's attack was too overbearing. Even with the toughness of its body, it could not continuously block Ji-dong's attacks. On the day that the deity Obliteration Strike was upgraded to the 6th layer, the Earth Dragon ancestor even suffered a small loss at Ji-dong's hands. The record of escaping 800 meters was also set on that day. Now that the deity Obliteration Strike was cultivated to the 6th layer, the Earth Dragon ancestor could no longer block Ji-dong's attack with its body. It had to release its mana to resist. Under such circumstances, how could Ji-dong not be happy? Just as Ji-dong's body was about to reach the Earth Dragon ancestor's chest, he suddenly seemed to be frozen in the air. The momentum that was still going up suddenly changed direction, forming a triangular trajectory in the air that smashed downwards. Dong's right fist went straight for the Earth Dragon Ancestor's lower abdomen. The Earth Dragon Ancestor was very depressed. Although its cultivation was at the peak of the martial sage realm, its biggest problem was that it could not leave its original position. Therefore, its huge lower body was naturally unable to move. Dong took advantage of this. Recently, he had been targeting the lower body of the Earth Dragon Ancestor when he attacked. The Earth Dragon Ancestor's body was so huge, but Dong's body was so small. With his own agility, he could really cause some trouble for the Earth Dragon Ancestor. Previously, Dong's record of escaping 800 meters was under the premise that he did not have the help of the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon. Other than the first time he escaped, Dong had released the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon back to the Dragon Valley and let it cultivate on its own. That place was obviously more suitable for the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon to improve. The Earth Dragon Ancestor naturally had no objections to the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon's departure. Without the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon, Dong would naturally have to bear more pressure. This was something that the Earth Dragon Ancestor was happy to see. Chapter 490. The Earth Dragon Ancestor admired Dong's sudden change of direction in the air, which seemed to violate the laws of nature. The Earth Dragon Ancestor knew that even the dragon race would not be able to do something like this. It was simply too confusing and sudden. If not for the fact that his soul energy was higher than Dong's and could make a certain judgment, this kind of change of direction would have brought him a lot of trouble. Of course, there were certain limitations to Dong's change of direction in the air. He could only do this by relying on the God-destroying attraction. To change the direction of his body through the God-destroying attraction, there had to be a fixed guiding point. The strength of the guiding point itself had to be so strong that it could not be moved by the God-destroying attraction. This way, his body could be pulled in the opposite direction. Ordinary rocks and the soil on the ground naturally could not be done so easily, but the body of the Earth Dragon Ancestor was not a problem. Dong had already mastered the God-destroying attraction to the point that he could control it with ease. His body had no direction to speak of. Once he started fighting, his ghostly figure was unparalleled. Of course, it did not mean that Dong's God-destroying attraction was useless without the Earth Dragon Ancestor. The God-destroying attraction's effect was to pull the enemy in front of him and then use the God-destroying strike to destroy them. This change of direction was a subsidiary effect that Dong had developed himself. The Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon's huge body was obviously not something that Dong could pull. Moreover, Dong could inform it to stabilize its body and help him pull through the spiritual communication. Therefore, if this God-destroying attraction was used appropriately, it could be said to be one of Dong's trump cards. At this moment, seeing that Dong was charging towards it, the Earth Dragon Ancestor's dragon claw grabbed downwards. At the same time, the mana in its body circulated at high speed. A thick earth spear had already drilled out of the ground and went straight for Dong's body. The Earth Dragon Ancestor's dragon claw was too frightening. That wasn't just the attack power within the range of the dragon claw. It was at least a wide range of 30 meters. It was as if a mountain was pressing down. Even without using any skills, the magic power at the peak of the Saint tier was enough to be comparable to an ordinary ultimate skill. In the face of such a situation, Dong did not panic. After 3 months of training, he had already gradually understood the fighting style of the Earth Dragon Ancestor. Both of his palms flipped outwards and pushed out, and the God-vanquishing induction displayed the anti-attraction ability. This was also a new ability that Dong had developed in the past few months, and it had evolved from the God-vanquishing induction. He operated the God-slaying attraction in the opposite direction. This way, when his palm pushed out, there would no longer be a suction force. Instead, there would be a sudden burst of thrust, and with the help of his own magic power, the power of this push was quite huge. The Earth Dragon Ancestor's huge body naturally could not be pushed by Dong. However, with this push, with the help of the counterforce, Dong's body had already been sent flying like a cannonball. From the start of the fight until now, he had not even used his Phoenix Dance Dragon Snake transformation. Although wings could give him the ability to fly in such rapid movements, it would instead become a hindrance. Ji-dong changed his direction again, and that earth spear naturally could not hit him. The earth dragon ancestor snorted and flipped the dragon claw that was slapping downwards. Its dragon claw was not much different from a human's palm, and it also had 5 fingers. At this moment, its middle finger and thumb clasped together and instantly flicked out. A sharp explosive sound instantly rang out in the air. This time, it was not the magic power of the earth element. That dot of golden light was filled with an extremely sharp aura, and Ji-dong's body was instantly locked onto by the earth dragon ancestor's powerful soul force. That dot of golden light even had an unparalleled aura, and in the blink of an eye, it had caught up to him. Faced with the earth dragon ancestor's lock-on, Ji-dong was not flustered at all. In the void, the air seemed to distort slightly, and then that dot of golden light that the earth dragon ancestor had flicked out paused in the air for a moment. What shocked the earth dragon ancestor the most was that it had actually lost its lock on Ji-dong. How is this possible? The earth dragon ancestor was really shocked this time. Ever since it had left Ji-dong here, this had never happened before. Its soul force was a level higher than Ji-dong's, and according to common sense, it was impossible for Ji-dong to escape from its lock-on. This was also one of the reasons why Ji-dong was unable to escape from this place. With its soul lock-on, the earth dragon ancestor could clearly grasp his next move and naturally could deal with it calmly. With its magic power that far exceeded the opponent's, it was easier said than done for Ji-dong to escape from it. After losing its lock-on, the metal attribute attack that was flicked out could only maintain a straight line. After pausing in the air for a moment, Ji-dong's body only slightly deviated from the direction, and that golden light swept past him. Dodging one of its attacks was nothing, but dodging its soul lock-on was a big problem. The earth dragon ancestor was a little puzzled and a little depressed, but Ji-dong did not care about that. His body suddenly accelerated, and the Phoenix Dance Dragon Snake transformation that he had not released earlier was completely released now. Both his wings flapped, and together with the flying serpent flash, he charged forward at full speed and flew diagonally towards the sky. Flying diagonally was the easiest way for Ji-dong to escape the Earth Dragon ancestor's control after countless experiments. There was water in the sky and soil on the ground. Flying diagonally could increase the distance as much as possible. There was no doubt that the Earth Dragon ancestor's attack power was inversely proportional to the distance. The further the distance, the weaker the attack power. While the Earth Dragon ancestor was shocked, Ji-dong had already leaped close to 300 meters away. The yin-yang flame, soaring spirit formation was fully raised behind him, and the Tai Chi demonic domain was activated to the maximum. It looked like he would not stop until he had broken through 3,000 meters. The Earth Dragon ancestor had already reacted at this moment. With a cold snort, he raised his right claw and pointed it toward the sky. At the same time, he reached out his left claw and made a clawing gesture in the direction where Hyoheim was moving. Instantly, an extremely strong suction force appeared behind Ji-dong, and his overall increased speed was slowed down in an instant. Although he could still barely maintain moving forward, he could only move at a speed of a few meters per second, which was like a tortoise's crawl to him. The difference in magic power between Ji-dong and the Earth Dragon ancestor was too great. This kind of suction force had become the main culprit that Ji-dong could not escape from for God knows how many times. Moreover, the sky was already filled with dark clouds at this moment, and it was not rain that fell from these dark clouds. Under the control of the Earth Dragon ancestor, countless water droplets condensed into the shape of icicles and smashed down in the direction of Ji-dong. Trying to escape? It won't be that easy. The Earth Dragon ancestor struck out with both claws, attacking from the sky and pulling from behind. As long as Ji-dong went to block the attack from the sky, he would naturally not be able to block the pulling force with all his strength and would definitely be pulled back. Right now, the Earth Dragon ancestor wanted to get this kid back as soon as possible and then find out what happened just now. Until now, it still could not understand why its attack would be delayed, and Ji-dong would still be able to escape at that time. Without a doubt, this must be Ji-dong's doing. At this moment, Ji-dong's face was facing outwards, so the Earth Dragon ancestor could not see the expression on his face. If it could see it, perhaps it would be a little wary. Ji-dong's expression was very solemn. Both his knees were bent, and both his arms were folded in front of his chest. He tried his best to make his body a little smaller, so that the pulling force he had to withstand would naturally be smaller as well. The icicles in the sky had already descended brazenly. This was clearly a water element super killing technique that attacked in all directions, but the Earth Dragon ancestor clearly did not want to really hurt him. When it used this kind of demonic technique to attack him, it would not lock onto him, but only attack the periphery, pressuring him so that he could not escape. Ji-dong suddenly took a deep breath. His hands that were folded in front of him were clasped together, and at this moment, they had completely turned pitch black like ink. Even his eyes seemed to be engulfed in black ink, and the yin-yang fire soaring spirit design behind him seemed to have turned into a yin-yang fire condensation spirit design. At the same time, the Tai Chi demonic territory was circulating rapidly, and the black and white colors formed a huge ball of light around his body. With the cover of the Tai Chi demonic territory, the changes on the five-element spirit design did not attract the attention of the Earth Dragon ancestor. The icicles arrived, and suddenly, the wings on Ji-dong's back retracted, and all the forces that were resisting the pulling force behind him were retracted. His entire body instantly flew backward like a cannonball, heading towards the direction of the Earth Dragon ancestor. This was not the first time the Earth Dragon ancestor had encountered such a situation. Without a doubt, what Ji-dong did was the wisest choice, avoiding a direct confrontation with the super killing technique. Once Ji-dong's body was pulled back, the Earth Dragon ancestor naturally relaxed a little, and the suction force on his dragon claw continued to increase. As long as the momentum of his return appeared, it was almost impossible for Ji-dong to continue charging forward. At the same time, he extended his other dragon claw, and the dark clouds in the sky seemed to have been swept away by a huge broom, disappearing together with the icicles without a trace. This was the Three-Unity Mountain Range, and in a sense, the Three-Unity Mountain Range could be considered a part of the Earth Dragon ancestor's body. Being bombarded by a super-killing technique was not a wonderful thing. At the very least, a large number of plants would die, and this was not what the Earth Dragon ancestor was willing to see. Therefore, after achieving its goal, it would rather expend some magic power to cancel the super-killing technique that it had cast earlier. This method was something that even the Dragon Emperor did not dare to easily replicate. Canceling the super-killing technique that he had released would result in a backlash if he was not careful. Ji-dong's body seemed to be trying to spread his wings again in the air to stabilize his body so that he would not be pulled over, but such an action only attracted a disdainful look from the Earth Dragon ancestor. You want to stop my magic power pull? Is it that easy? Even if it's a mountain, I can pull it over just like that. As expected, after Ji-dong's body tried to struggle, but to no avail, he chose to give up. His body flew towards the Earth Dragon ancestor like a cannonball. According to previous situations, the Earth Dragon ancestor's dragon claws would grab Ji-dong's body in the next moment and throw him to the ground, thus announcing that his escape this time had failed. This time, Ji-dong did not even manage to escape 400 meters away. The only bright spot was the lock-on isolation. No matter how one looked at it, it seemed like he had been too hasty. Many of the escape abilities that were usually more effective were not used. The Earth Dragon ancestor was simply too powerful. It definitely did not think that Ji-dong would be able to escape from it in a short period of time. Therefore, it more or less looked down on Ji-dong. In its opinion, the reason why Ji-dong did not use many skills to escape was that the lock-on isolation had consumed a lot of his energy. The other possibility was that he believed that he could not escape from its grasp. Therefore, it did not have too many doubts about the fact that it had managed to capture Ji-dong rather smoothly. Just as Ji-dong was about to reach the Earth Dragon ancestor, Ji-dong suddenly did something that confused the Earth Dragon ancestor. Instead of trying to escape, he turned around. When Ji-dong turned around, the Earth Dragon ancestor was shocked. However, it was too late for it to react. In front of Ji-dong's chest, in his clenched hands, there was a multifaceted, diamond-shaped black crystal that was about half a foot in diameter. The black crystal seemed to be transparent, and there was a dark purple halo flowing within it. The most frightening thing was that it did not emit any mana waves. Until the moment Ji-dong turned around, the Earth Dragon ancestor did not sense any danger from the huge black crystal. Ji-dong's face was very pale, so pale that it was frightening. It was as if he had suffered a huge overdraft. Just as the Earth Dragon ancestor was about to say something, Ji-dong's hands had already loosened. He did not need to exert any force. The traction force from the Earth Dragon ancestor's claws had already attracted the black crystal to his hands. Everything seemed to take a long time to describe, but in reality, everything happened in the blink of an eye. When the Earth Dragon ancestor uttered those two words, the black crystal had already collided with his huge claws. I've been tricked. That was the first thought that came to the Earth Dragon ancestor's mind. However, it was too late even if he realized it. As soon as that thought appeared in his mind, an extremely cold aura spread through his entire body. Being spread throughout one's body by mana was a very normal thing for humans and even ordinary dragons. However, it was something that had not happened to the Earth Dragon ancestor for thousands of years. When an ordinary adult giant dragon reached the 10th rank, its body length would generally be between 20 to 30 meters. Only the Dragon King's body length would exceed the limit of 30 meters. Only the royal family could grow to more than 50 meters. One must know that the difference in the size of a body wasn't just a difference in length. The larger the body, the larger the body. The Earth Dragon ancestor was an anomaly to begin with. His body was over 100 meters tall, and his weight was calculated in the thousands of tons. How huge was that? How much mana was needed to make the Earth Dragon ancestor feel the cold spread throughout its body in an instant? The black color spread rapidly from the point where the Earth Dragon ancestor and the black crystal collided. In a few breaths, it had spread to every part of the Earth Dragon ancestor's body. Chapter 491. Its humongous body now stood there like a statue. The dazzling black crystal looked especially strange under the sunlight. The instant the black crystal collided with the Earth Dragon ancestor's body, the air that had previously distorted appeared once again. This time, it happened to cut off the Earth Dragon ancestor's pull, and at the same time, it blocked Ji-dong's charging body. Even though it was only for an instant, it was enough for Ji-dong to adjust and not collide with the Earth Dragon ancestor's body that had turned black. Mao Tai Wuliangya. Ji-dong bellowed, and the air in front of him split apart. Through the summoning of their souls, the sacred evolution fire dragon appeared in front of him. Without any verbal communication, it carried Ji-dong's body and flew out diagonally. When it flew out, Ji-dong was almost lying on the back of the sacred evolution fire dragon. Ji-dong lay on the back of the sacred evolution fire dragon and raised his right hand with difficulty. The vermilion bird bracelet emitted a golden red light. With a beautiful long tail, Her appeared in the sky out of thin air. At the same time, Ji-dong had already closed his eyes. Rays of silver light appeared out of thin air and quietly enveloped the black crystal Earth Dragon ancestor's body like a large net. The Earth Dragon ancestor would never have thought that Ji-dong would be able to unleash such an all-out attack in just 3 months' time. The Earth Dragon ancestor had always known that Ji-dong had been holding back his true strength. With how sharp his judgment was, he naturally knew that Ji-dong would always have some strength to spare. However, he never would have thought that Ji-dong would have the confidence to break through in such a short period of time. His sudden outburst had caught him completely off guard. The Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon did not pause at all. When Ji-dong released the dreamy silver domain, it had already twisted its body and flew away at high speed. Meanwhile, Earth floated in midair. All the black on its body quietly retreated. Just like the three-legged golden crow that Ji Dong had faced before, its entire body blossomed with a brilliant golden light. Incomparably dense, extreme, yang fire exploded from its body. In the next moment, had already let out an extremely resonant phoenix cry. Blinding golden light seeped out of its body and formed a golden phoenix that was completely made of energy. It charged straight at the Earth Dragon ancestor's chest. It was the Phoenix Dancing Sunall. Once upon a time, the Phoenix Dancing Sunall required the combined strength of Ji Dong and Hua. In the end, Ji Dong had to use it himself. Now, however, had completed the technique in an instant. Furthermore, it was very obvious that the Phoenix Dancing Sunall had reached the level of a basic ultimate killing technique when it used its full strength. Was the Vermilion Bird's child. Although it currently possessed both the Yin and Yang fire attribute, when it used the Yang fire demon technique, its bloodline would produce a certain bonus. Hence, although Hua's body seemed to have a balance of Yin and Yang, when it used its techniques, the Yang fire demon technique was actually slightly stronger. This strength came from the acknowledgement of a Yang fire element in the air towards its Vermilion Bird bloodline. From a moment he soared into the air, Ji Dong had already made preparations. His seemingly sudden move was actually after careful consideration. Attacking the Earth Dragon ancestor and flying diagonally were all bait. As for the distorted air that shocked the Earth Dragon ancestor and blocked the Earth Dragon ancestor's attack, it was an additional technique that he had obtained after leveling up the deity Annihilation strike to the 6th stage. It was called the God Annihilation Wall. The effect of the God Annihilation Wall was very simple. It instantly blocked all forms of energy. No matter what level of attack, within the range of the deity Annihilation strike, there would be a moment of pause. At the same time, it blocked all spiritual waves. The original function of the God Annihilation Wall was that when the person with the deity Annihilation strike attacked, the enemy would escape and not let them get close. With the God Annihilation Wall blocking, there would naturally be a chance to get close to the enemy. If it was used for defense, it would be like what Ji Dong had displayed earlier to block the enemy's soul lock, giving himself a chance to dodge. The God Annihilation Wall didn't seem as direct as the God Annihilation attraction. However, after Ji Dong's continuous exploration and simulation in his heart, he understood that the God Annihilation Wall was actually more useful than the God Annihilation attraction. Although it could only block for an instant, according to the Awakened technique, this instant was absolute. In other words, even if he encountered a God rank expert, it could also block them for an instant. What made Ji Dong even more ecstatic was that the God Annihilation Wall had another extremely good feature, and that was its usage. The range of the God Annihilation Wall was within a radius of 50 meters around Ji Dong's body. Its usage was driven by his thoughts. In other words, when Ji Dong wanted to use the God Annihilation Wall, as long as he willed it, a God Annihilation Wall could appear anywhere within the radius of 50 meters. Of course, there was only one side. When this God Annihilation Wall disappeared due to the opponent's attack, there would be a cool-down period of 10 breaths. After that, it could be used again. In a battle between experts, victory or defeat would often be decided in a split second. If one could stop the opponent for a split second or block the opponent's attack for a split second, it could save one's life. Moreover, this split second that the God Annihilation Wall blocked was only for enemies whose cultivation base was higher than Ji Dong's. If the opponent's strength was insufficient, then the duration of the God Annihilation Wall naturally wouldn't be as simple as a split second. It could last for a maximum of 3 seconds. It would be invisible and formless, completely a pure change in the air. Ji Dong had also roughly figured out the principle of the God Annihilation Wall. In fact, it was to make use of Ji Dong's spiritual power to instantly produce control over the air, causing the air to be highly compressed like the God Annihilation strike that he had used. Hence, Ji Dong placed a lot of importance on this skill. In order to not let the Earth Dragon ancestor discover it, he had been secretly practicing it in his heart. Today, when he suddenly used it, it was as he had expected, and it shocked the Earth Dragon ancestor. In fact, Even Ji Dong himself didn't know that if he continued to practice this God Annihilation strike, he would only be able to produce the next skill when he reached the 7th tier. The reason why Ji Dong was able to trigger the appearance of this God Annihilation wall was because of his spiritual power. The conditions for the appearance of the God Annihilation wall wasn't just to cultivate to the 6th tier of the God Annihilation strike. At the same time, when he reached the 6th tier of the God Annihilation strike, he also needed to have saint-level spiritual power in order to obtain this skill. Once the God Annihilation strike broke through to the 7th tier, even if his spiritual power reached the saint level, the God Annihilation wall wouldn't appear anymore. After all, the usage of this skill depended more on the control of spiritual power. Ji Dong was lucky. The benefits of this skill had already been fully displayed. First, it shocked the Earth Dragon ancestor. Then, it helped Ji Dong block the pulling force of the Earth Dragon ancestor temporarily. It played a crucial role in this scheme. And when Ji Dong flew out previously, everything that he did, at least everything that the Earth Dragon ancestor felt, was actually an illusion. In his Tai Chi demonic territory, he had already used the fantasy silver demonic territory to make the Earth Dragon ancestor look like he was using all his spiritual power to escape. But in fact, with the effect of the fantasy silver demonic territory, for a short period of time, Ji Dong could even block the Earth Dragon ancestor's spiritual power for probing. He converted all his spiritual power into ultimate yin fire. Through the yin-yang fire condensation array and the absorption of the fire element in the air by the Tai Chi demonic territory, he forcefully raised his power to the extreme and used the ultimate killer skill, Ice of the Great Yu Flame. Although his cultivation had broken through to the 8 crowns, Ji Dong still almost exhausted his spiritual power when he used this demonic skill. This was even with the help of the power of the demonic territory and the effect of the 5 elements array. However, he finally used his own power to release this powerful attack. Of course, it was not at the level of the ultimate killer skill combined with the Dragon Phoenix attack, but it had reached the level of an advanced ultimate killer skill. What was more powerful was that with the binding of the powerful spiritual power of the fantasy silver demonic territory, he forcibly imprisoned this skill in the crystal that the Earth Dragon ancestor saw. Only at the most crucial moment did he push the skill out, or rather, let the Earth Dragon ancestor grab it himself. Although the Earth Dragon ancestor was strong, it was not easy to deal with the bombardment of this ultimate killer skill. Just as Ji Dong had predicted, it was successfully sealed in ice. Of course, with the Earth Dragon ancestor being at the peak of the Sage level, it could release its own ultimate killer skill. This gigantic Ice of Yu Flame was naturally unable to trap it, but what Ji Dong wanted was this short period of time. In the first second after the Earth Dragon ancestor was sealed in ice, Ji Dong summoned the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon and the Eclipse Phoenix at the same time. In the second, the Earth Dragon ancestor's body had already emitted a crisp explosion. Fine cracks had already begun to appear on the black crystal. And it was also at this moment that the Eclipse Phoenix, who had long received Ji Dong's message and was waiting, released its Phoenix Dancing Sunall and went straight for the Earth Dragon ancestor's chest. At this moment, the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon was already flying at high speed. It used this second to bring Ji Dong 100 meters away. At the same time, it accelerated at full speed towards itself. In the third second, with a loud shattering sound, the gigantic Ice of Yu Flame on the Earth Dragon ancestor's body exploded and shattered. The ultimate yin fire's fragments scattered in all directions. And it was also at this moment that Horror's Phoenix Dancing Sunall arrived. Although the Earth Dragon ancestor had forcefully broken free from the gigantic Ice of Yu Flame's restraints, it was still an attack that had concentrated all of Ji Dong's magic power. It was also an ultimate killer skill. Its body had also been injected with a large amount of ultimate yin fire, causing its body to stiffen. And at this moment, the Phoenix Dancing Sunall directly struck its chest without any fancy moves. The timing of the Phoenix Dancing Sunall's arrival could be said to be perfect. It just happened to merge with the shattered gigantic Ice of Yu Flame. In that instant, the sun and moon appeared in the sky at the same time. A blinding black and white brilliance appeared along with Hua Er's Tai Chi demonic territory. It spiraled and turned into a huge light pillar, directly bombarding the Earth Dragon ancestor's body. That was not all. A portion of the Phoenix Dancing Sunal's ultimate Yang fire had also penetrated the Earth Dragon ancestor's body. It merged with the ultimate Yin fire that had yet to be expelled. It could be said that it was an internal and external collision, completely unleashing its power. Under normal circumstances, it would be very difficult for Hua to use an attack at the level of the Phoenix Dancing Sunal to break through the Earth Dragon ancestor's defenses, let alone the aura of the ultimate Yang fire that had rushed into its body. However, it was different now. Although the gigantic Ice of You Flames attack did not really corrode its body, its defenses on the surface had been greatly weakened, which was why it was in such a state. The intense pain enraged the Earth Dragon ancestor. Amidst the loud, rumbling sounds, the Earth Dragon ancestor roared into the sky. Its massive body trembled violently, and its most fundamental Earth attribute was completely unleashed. The gray scales on its body, which looked like mountain rocks, instantly shattered and scattered in all directions. It was as if a mountain had exploded. At the same time, a dazzling, resplendent light erupted from within. Under the illumination of the sun, it actually released a rainbow of colors. Countless rumbling sounds were continuously released from its body. A terrifying saint-level pressure caused the world to lose its color. The sun and moon that appeared at the same time disappeared into thin air at the very next moment. The entire world seemed to have turned into a gloomy cloud, just like the Earth Dragon ancestor's current mood. Amidst the loud, rumbling sounds, all the dust and gravel in the air instantly stopped moving. At the same time, other than the earth element in the air, the entire 3 United Mountain Range and the sky above the 3 United Mountain Range, apart from the Dragon Valley, were only left with the earth element. That's right, only the earth element was left. Water, fire, wood, and metal. The 4 elements had vanished into thin air, just like that. If all the elements had vanished, it would instead be less shocking. It was possible to achieve this temporarily with the help of chaotic force. However, it was extremely difficult to produce such an effect in such a large area. Moreover, there was still 1 element left in the vast world. Achieving this was so difficult that even the Dragon Emperor knew that he definitely could not achieve it. The Demon Domain. This was the power that belonged to the Demon Domain. In its fury, the Earth Dragon ancestor had actually used its Demon Domain. The Demon Domain that the royal bloodline of the Dragon Clan had inherited was the Dragon Drill tyrannical Demon Domain. As the Fire Dragon Saint had inherited its mother's fire attribute, it did not inherit the Demon Domain. Clearly, what the Earth Dragon ancestor was using was not the Dragon Drill tyrannical Demon Domain either. When it was sealed here, its original infernal domain had already been stripped away. What it was displaying now was the infernal domain that it had created after comprehending the 5 elements for thousands of years. Compared to the Dragon Drill tyrannical infernal domain, it was in no way inferior. The name of this infernal domain was elemental stripping. As long as the Earth Dragon ancestor was willing, it could strip away all the elements it did not need or wanted to strip away within its range of control. The Demon Domain did not seem particularly powerful, nor did it have any offensive or defensive capabilities. However, it must not be forgotten that it had stripped away a total of 4 elements, leaving 1 behind. Moreover, it covered an extremely large area. It encompassed the entire 3 United Mountain Range. Chapter 492. The 3 Unity Mountain Range was located within the borders of the 3 empires. One could imagine how vast it was. If tens of thousands of magic masters entered this place and wanted to harm the dragons, the Dragon Emperor would only need to unleash this demon domain to ensure that they would never be able to return. After stripping away all the magic elements, the magic masters would not be able to communicate with the elements between heaven and earth. With the little bit of demon domain that they possessed, they would probably be exhausted after using 1 or 2 skills. They would only be able to fight with their bodies, and without magic, the magic masters would probably be weaker than a regular army. How many earth dragons were there in the 3 Unity mountain range? How many giant dragons were there? The powerful bodies of the dragons could be fully unleashed in the elemental stripping demon domain. It was precisely because of this that it was not wrong to say that the Earth Dragon Ancestor was the guardian of the dragons. The reason why the Earth Dragon Ancestor had used the elemental stripping demon's domain was simple. It was injured and enraged. Under the combined efforts of Jidong and Hoi-Er, the internal and external attacks of the ultimate dual flames had intersected. The explosive power produced by the fusion of yin and yang was terrifying. Even the Earth Dragon Ancestor had been caught off guard. The rocks on the surface of its body were completely corroded and shattered. In fact, if it was just the bombardment of these demonic skills, it was not impossible for the Earth Dragon Ancestor to block them with its strong body and terrifying magic. However, the problem was that when these demonic skills were unleashed, it suddenly lost control of its own body for a moment. Jidong's elemental fantasy silver demon domain could confuse its opponent and cause them to self-destruct in the demon domain. However, it was obvious that if this demon domain were to be used on the Earth Dragon Ancestor, it would not have any effect at all. The Earth Dragon Ancestor's spiritual energy was too powerful. Therefore, what Jidong needed to do was very simple. He needed to use his elemental fantasy silver demon domain to envelop the Earth Dragon Ancestor's body while it was being sealed by his great serenity, flaming ice. He would then attach himself to the Earth Dragon Ancestor and, at the most crucial moment, cut off the Earth Dragon Ancestor's ability to control its body. If not for the concealment of the glacial flame ice, Jidong would not have been able to do this. However, there was no doubt that his bold assumption was successful. That moment of stagnation had affected the process of the Earth Dragon Ancestor's channeling of mana. Hence, it was really taken advantage of by the ultimate dual fire. Under the internal and external attacks, it had injured its body. It had been many years since the Earth Dragon Ancestor had experienced the feeling of being injured. Being injured so suddenly, it was more of a shock followed by anger. It was actually injured just like that. Could it be that he had already become so weak? In its rage, it refused to let Jidong escape its control no matter what. Hence, it used the elemental stripping domain immediately. Fire-Er, who was closest to the Earth Dragon Ancestor, felt it the most clearly when the 4 major elements were stripped away. Not only did the fire elements around its body disappear, but even its Tai Chi demon domain also disappeared. Even a portion of the mana in its body was stripped away and disappeared into the air. Fire only felt that its body had suddenly become heavy. In its shock, it hurriedly flapped its wings in an attempt to fly away. However, in the next moment, a tyrannical suction force had already appeared. If not for the elemental stripping, it might have been able to resist for a while. However, at this moment, it had just released a super ultimate skill, and the mana in its body had been greatly depleted and could not be replenished. It had no ability to resist at all, and was already caught by the Earth Dragon Ancestor's huge dragon claw. The entire process took no more than 6 to 7 seconds, but the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon had already flown diagonally with Jidong and was about to exceed the range of 3,000 meters. In the first second, the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon rushed out 200 meters. In the next second, the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon's speed was fully unleashed. In the blink of an eye, Jidong could even hear a sonic boom in the air. In that instant, the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon's speed broke through the sound barrier. In just a short 6 or 7 seconds, it had already flown nearly 3,000 meters. The Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon let out another furious roar as it grabbed Fire-Er with its left claw. Instantly, the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon that was flying at high speed slowed down, and a yellow halo appeared around its body. Due to the great distance and the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon's speed, the Earth Dragon Ancestor wouldn't be able to catch them if he only relied on mana to pull them back. However, the Earth Dragon Ancestor instantly used an instant cast skill on the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon. There were no other elemental attributes in the air, and only the earth element was left. Naturally, the amplification of earth attribute magic skills was also great. The skill that the sacred evolution fire dragon was hit with was an earth attribute gravity increase skill. It was a very simple but very practical skill. No matter what kind of skill it was definitely not something that could be compared to an ordinary saint-level powerhouse like the Earth Dragon Ancestor. The Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon only felt its body become heavy, and its speed dropped instantly. It was already 3,000 meters away, but it could not speed up no matter what. Under the pressure of the increased gravity, the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon naturally had to use all its mana to resist. However, it could not communicate with the fire element between heaven and earth, so it could not replenish its mana. Wasn't it a fool's dream to compete with the Earth Dragon Ancestor in terms of stamina? Although the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon was already 3,000 meters away, it was still unable to escape from the Earth Dragon Ancestor's control. Jidong's heart was filled with admiration. In a short span of 10 seconds, he had already used all his skills, including his intelligence. It could be said that he had used all his power to its fullest. However, it seemed that he still might not be able to break through the Earth Dragon Ancestor's control. Moreover, what he had done just now could not be repeated in the future. Once the Ancestor, the Earth Dragon, was on guard, not to mention the 3,000 meters in front of him, he might not even be able to rush out of the 1,000 meters. A peak saint was indeed too powerful. At this moment, the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon unleashed its ruthlessness. Its body suddenly twisted in the air, and it slapped the air violently. It was its ultimate hand-to-hand combat skill, the Sacred Evolution Hammer. Its body rubbed against the air, and an explosive sound was heard. Immediately after, its talent skill, transmigration, was used. Despite the increased gravity, the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon still brought the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon hundreds of meters away. Then, the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon twisted its body in the air, and it swung its head, forcefully flinging Jidong's body out. Jidong's body was not affected by the increased gravity. Moreover, the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon used all its might to throw Jidong 200 meters away in an instant. At this moment, Jidong was already 3,300 meters away from the Earth Dragon Ancestor. Under the increased gravity, the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon had no choice but to descend to the ground. It could no longer bring him along. In the air, Jidong took a deep breath. In the few seconds before the Earth Dragon Ancestor used element stripping, the mana in his body had recovered somewhat. Although it was less than 10%, it was no problem for him to maintain the dragon snake transformation. The wings on his back spread out, and with a powerful flap, he continued to fly diagonally towards the sky. Good lad. The rage in the Earth Dragon Ancestor's eyes had subsided a little. Looking at Jidong, who was flying diagonally, it snorted. It was not that it could not blast Jidong down, but with a distance of more than 3,000 meters, it had to at least use a high-level sure-kill skill to have a chance of hitting Jidong. And the Jidong in front of it obviously could not withstand such an attack. In other words, the Earth Dragon Ancestor now had the confidence to destroy Jidong, but it had no way of capturing him back. Jidong, lad, don't blame me for not warning you. I'll count to 10. If you don't fly back, I'll cripple this mutated little phoenix of yours. The Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon is my descendant, so I naturally won't make things difficult for you, but this little phoenix is not my descendant. It has the bloodline of the vermilion bird, but even if the vermilion bird comes, what can it do to me? The Earth Dragon Ancestor's eyes were fixed on Jidong, and it had already started counting. 1. There's no need to count, I admit defeat. Don't hurt little fire. Jidong's weak voice came from afar. He had already stopped flying into the distance, turned around, and glided slowly towards the Earth Dragon Ancestor. The Earth Dragon Ancestor did not use any more skills on him, and just watched him glide towards it. Even found it a little funny. Throughout the process of Jidong landing, it had been paying close attention to all of Jidong's movements, afraid that it would be tricked again. To be able to make it pay so much attention This lad was already capable. Ji-dong landed on the ground with a remorseful look on his face. He looked up at the Earth Dragon ancestor and said, "Let go of little fire. I don't even have 10% of my mana now. I can't do anything else." The Earth Dragon ancestor let go of its dragon claw and flung little fire into the sky. Little fire spread its wings and soared into the sky. After letting out a few angry phoenix cries, it flew back into Ji-dong's vermilion bird bracelet, reluctantly and fearfully. With Ji-dong's return, the increasing gravity on the sacred evolution fire dragon's body naturally disappeared. It flew back and circled behind Ji-dong, looking at the Earth Dragon ancestor cautiously, afraid that the Earth Dragon ancestor would harm Ji-dong in anger. The Earth Dragon ancestor looked at Ji-dong, and its eyes flickered. After a while, it suddenly laughed and said, "Brat, now I know why the dragon's sovereign taught you such a lesson. I didn't win today, and if you didn't come back, you could have already escaped from my control. I didn't expect you to be so tolerant, Brat. You only played all your trump cards just now, and you actually have 2 magical beasts. Also, tell me, what method did you use to break my soul lock just now?" Ji-dong looked at the Earth Dragon ancestor and smiled. "That's a secret I can't tell you. You really won't tell me?" The Earth Dragon ancestor snorted. Ji-dong shook his head. "I'm determined not to tell you." The Earth Dragon ancestor suddenly lowered its head and looked at Ji-dong. "How about this? I'll trade with you. You tell me how you broke my soul lock, and I'll teach you something." "Teach me?" Ji-dong was overjoyed, but on the surface, he still looked at the Earth Dragon ancestor calmly. "What can you teach me? Although you have 3 elements, if I remember correctly, the fire element isn't one of them, right?" The Earth Dragon ancestor snorted. "So what if it isn't? Am I not allowed to teach you? Brat, do you think the air here is comfortable?" Ji-dong said, "There's only the earth element left. How can it be comfortable? If I'm not wrong, this should be your demon's realm, right? The only earth element?" The Earth Dragon ancestor raised its head and said in disdain, "The only earth element is nothing. This daddy's demon's realm is called elemental stripping. Whichever element I want to exist, that element will exist, and whichever element I want to disappear, that element will disappear. Isn't it awesome?" Ji-dong looked at the Earth Dragon ancestor and was slightly stunned, but he still nodded his head in the end and said seriously, "Awesome, it's really awesome. Actually, if I hadn't resorted to trickery, I wouldn't have been able to escape within 3,000 meters today." The Earth Dragon ancestor shook his head and said, "Don't talk to me about trickery. I've trapped you here and restricted your freedom. It's unfair to you in the first place. Be it in terms of age or cultivation, you and I are worlds apart. Under such circumstances, you should be proud of yourself for being able to charge more than 3,000 meters into the sky under my control, no matter what methods you use. I dare say that in the entire dragon race, other than the Dragon Emperor, no one can do that. Even the Dragon Emperor would have to pay a huge price to break free from my control. So, Brat, everything you've done just now can be considered a miracle." Ji-dong smiled faintly and said, "The word miracle has appeared on me too many times. Senior, just tell me directly. What do you want in exchange for the information that blocked your soul lock-on skill? If the conditions are agreeable, we can negotiate." The Earth Dragon ancestor snorted and said, "Don't worry with my status. Why would I take advantage of you? The conditions that I can state are naturally not something you can refuse. That is, I'll teach you my elemental stripping demon's realm. How about it?" After hearing the words of the Earth Dragon ancestor, even the tone of Ji-dong's voice changed. He looked at the Earth Dragon ancestor in a daze, unable to speak for a moment. The demon's realm can be taught? That was the first question that came to Ji-dong's mind. In the next moment, his heart began to burn uncontrollably. One could well imagine the powerful effects of the elemental stripping demon's realm. To him, it could definitely help him raise his abilities to another level. Furthermore, he already had 2 demon's realms, and the elemental stripping demon's realm did not clash with the one he already had. If he could really learn it, then his cultivation would definitely be able to reach a whole new level. With such a huge attraction, how could Ji-dong not be tempted? Chapter 493. The Earth Dragon ancestor chuckled. How about it? I'm right, aren't I? Aren't you going to bring those little fellas to the core? Don't think that you can run wild in the core just because you have some ability now. I can tell you for sure that with your current abilities, the moment you enter the core and go below the 10th level, I'm afraid that none of you will be able to come back alive. Of course, if you learn my elemental stripping demon territory, then it'll be a different story. Although you won't be able to roam the core unhindered, it shouldn't be a problem for you to protect yourself. Quick, tell me what ability you used just now. Jidong looked at the Earth Dragon ancestor and couldn't help but ask, Senior, can you really teach the demon territory? I've never heard of it. It can be learned. The ancestor, the Earth Dragon, snorted. That's because you're ignorant and inexperienced. Who said that the infernal domain can't be learned? My infernal domain of elemental stripping was created by me and not awakened by myself. You've heard my story that day as well. I was the first Dragon Emperor, and the infernal domain that I originally possessed was naturally the same as the current Dragon Emperors, a Dragon Diamond tyrannical domain. After I was sealed here, do you think that they would still leave this Dragon Diamond tyrannical domain for me? If that's the case, can this place trap me? My demon territory has long since been stripped away when I was sealed here. This elemental stripping demon territory is something that I've gradually cultivated after thousands of years of thinking and experimentation. Unless the Dragon Emperor can cultivate to the same level as me, even if he uses the Dragon Drill Overlord demon territory, he won't be able to reverse my elemental stripping demon territory. He'll still be affected by the elemental stripping demon territory. How about it? Do you want to learn it or not? Be quick. Yes, I'll learn it. Jidong agreed without hesitation. He wasn't afraid that the Earth Dragon ancestor would lie to him. With the Earth Dragon ancestor's cultivation and strength, there was no need for him to do that. If you want to kill Jidong, it couldn't be any easier. Then tell me, how did you do it before? You should know that if you didn't have the ability to sever my soul lock and affect my mind, you wouldn't have succeeded. Jidong nodded and said, You're right. My motive at that time was to use the God-destroying wall to influence your judgment and make you curious so that you would relax your guard against my detection. Even when you used your mana to guide me back, all my struggles were just an act to lure you into taking the bait. The Earth Dragon ancestor said angrily, Get to the point. What is this God vanquishing wall? Then, Jidong didn't hide anything. He told the Earth Dragon ancestor how he obtained the God vanquishing strike and the process of cultivating it. He talked about how he improved the God vanquishing wall to the 6th level and obtained the God vanquishing wall. Hearing Jidong's words, the Earth Dragon ancestor fell into deep thought and didn't speak for a long time. After a long time, he slowly moved on to Hyoheim and sighed. Kid, you're really blessed by the heavens. If I'm not wrong, the God vanquishing strike you learn belongs to the category of creation godly skills. Creation godly skill? What's that? Jidong asked curiously. The Earth Dragon ancestor chuckled and said, You've asked the right person. In this world, I'm afraid I'm the only one who knows what a creation godly skill is. The so-called creation godly skill isn't the skill of the gods. It's a skill used to restrict the gods. The gods do exist in this world, but unless it's under extremely special circumstances, the gods in the realm of the gods are not allowed to come to the human world. Jidong's face darkened, and he nodded silently. Of course, he knew what the Earth Dragon ancestor was talking about. Wasn't the flaming bar killed by the god of slaughter, Shupness? The Earth Dragon ancestor looked at him in shock and said, It seems like you know about the existence of the gods? Jidong said, Jin didn't tell you about me? The Earth Dragon ancestor shook his head and looked at Jidong with great interest. He said, Whenever I mention you, that girl will change the subject and won't tell me at all. But I can tell that she likes you very much. Otherwise, why would I let you stay and let you off so easily? Jidong was currently immersed in the memories of the battle between the Flaming Bar and Shupness, so he didn't notice the meaning in the Earth Dragon ancestor's words. He murmured, Back then, my Flaming Bar died in the hands of the gods. Under the Earth Dragon ancestor's shocked gaze, Jidong started from the battle on the Holy Evil Island, how the flaming bar saved the entire Radiant Five Elements mainland, but was killed by Shupness, and how he sealed Shupness. The memories of the process were too painful for him, so he didn't go into too much detail during the whole process. Even so, the Earth Dragon ancestor was still extremely shocked. He said, "The Flaming Bar Empress has actually cultivated to the level of a level 2 god. The core world is indeed blessed by the heavens. It's a pity that I didn't get to see her with my own eyes. If I could spar with her, perhaps I would have a chance to break free from the shackles in front of me. Sigh, it's all too late. These *T gods of the immortal realm are simply out of their minds, sending people to kill the Flaming Bar Empress indiscriminately. However, this rule of the immortal realm is targeted at the core world, not Her Majesty the Flaming Bar Empress." After knowing that the Flaming Bar Empress had cultivated to the level of a god, even the Earth Dragon ancestor couldn't help but address her respectfully. Targeted at the core world? Why? Jidong looked at the Earth Dragon ancestor and asked. The Earth Dragon ancestor said, "The reason is simple. The core world is too blessed by the heavens. You humans have a good saying. Concentrated is the essence. You've been to the core world yourself, so you naturally know how rich the fire element there is. Under such circumstances, the creatures of the core world are blessed by the heavens in their cultivation compared to other creatures. As long as a few talented geniuses appear, they can really break through to the god realm, just like the Flame Tyrant and the Dark Flame Devil King. In the end, it was the Flaming Bar Empress who succeeded in breaking through to the god realm and killed the two of them. It's precisely because the conditions of the core world are too blessed by the heavens. Once such a heaven-defying powerhouse appears, it's very likely that it will bring an irreversible disaster to the surface world or even threaten the rule of the immortal realm. Her Majesty the Flaming Bar Empress is an example. She's no longer an ordinary god, but a level 2 god who can fight against the hunters of the immortal realm. If it wasn't for your incident, and she was given sufficient time, who knows what level she could have cultivated to?" Jidong said sadly, "Let's not talk about this. Senior, please continue to talk about the godly skill of creation." The ancestor of the Earth Dragon said, "At the beginning of the chaos, our world was born. As for where it came from, no one can say for sure, not even the gods in the sky. After our world was born, various races gradually appeared. At that time, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth was incomparably abundant, and the first races gradually perfected our world. Our dragon race didn't exist at the beginning, but after a period of nurturing in the world, we came into existence. Among those first races, there were some experts who were blessed by the heavens, and after continuous cultivation, they could rise to another level. This is the so-called gods. I once saw a relic left behind by a god, and according to him, the divine realm is a level above our world. There are not only gods who ascended from our world, there are also gods from other worlds. When a world is created, and when there are gods, there may be a godly skill of creation. The power of the gods is too strong, so they can only live in the divine realm. You should understand that if the power of a god is used in the human world, it is a terrifying thing. The godly skill of creation is a skill that restrains the gods, and it is said that it was born naturally at the beginning of the chaos. Legend has it that there are 5 supremes in the divine realm, and they control the entire divine realm. The reason why they are able to subdue the gods is because each of the 5 supremes has at least one godly skill of creation. Jidong looked at the ancestor of the Earth Dragon in shock and said, "Are you going to tell me that my god-slaying strike is a skill that only the supremes in the divine realm can possess?" The ancestor of the Earth Dragon nodded and said, "According to the relic left behind by that god, your god-slaying strike should be a godly skill of creation. In the relic left behind by that god, the greatest characteristic of the godly skill of creation is that it can continue to awaken skills within the skill itself. Think about it. Other than the god-slaying strike, do you have any other skills that can self-awaken skills? Anyway, I have lived for thousands of years, and this is the first time I have encountered such a situation." Hearing this reminder from the ancestor of the Earth Dragon, Jidong recalled that it was indeed as he had said. Other than the god-slaying strike, there was no other skill that could self-awaken and evolve to the next level. The ancestor of the earth dragon continued. However, I am not sure whether this so-called godly skill of creation really exists. After all, this is just the words left behind by that so-called god. You don't have to worry too much about it. After all, your god-slaying strike has been cultivated to the 6th level, and at most, it has the power to injure a saint, but it is not enough to determine the outcome of the battle. When you cultivate to the 9th level, you will naturally understand whether this godly skill of creation really exists. If you think too much about it now, it will instead restrict your future development. Do you understand what I mean? Skills are dead, but humans are alive. In the process of battle, you can maintain a clear mind, and you can always create strange tactics. This is what gives me the most headaches. The God-slaying strike can be used as your trump card, but the other skills are equally important. Although the God-slaying strike is good, the improvement of your own mana is more important. I dare say that even if you cultivate the God-slaying strike to the 9th level, if you do not have the support of God-level mana, you will still not be able to truly slay a god. Listening to the words of the ancestor of the earth dragon, Ji Dong nodded continuously, looking at him with more respect. The ancestor of the earth dragon was right. If he placed too much importance on the god-slaying strike and really thought that he would be invincible with this so-called godly skill of creation, then he would be destroyed sooner or later. No matter how strong the god-slaying strike was, it had its own limitations. In order to fully unleash it, he would first need to be strong enough and have other skills to complement it. The ancestor of the earth dragon laughed heartily. Since it is the effect of the godly skill of creation, then it is not unjust for you to escape. All right, you have told me what I want to know. Now, it is time for me to impart the demon realm to you. Ji Dong, stand up straight, close your eyes, and guard your soul. Do not let it out at all. Ji Dong lifted his head and looked at the ancestor of the earth dragon, then did as he was told. There was no need for Ji Dong to be on his guard against the ancestor of the earth dragon. If the ancestor of the earth dragon wanted to kill him, it would be as easy as pie. It could be said that this was a strange form of trust. Looking at Ji Dong in front of him, the ancestor of the earth dragon's big yellow eyes revealed a hint of disappointment. He slowly raised his right claw and pressed it down in the direction of Ji Dong. Suddenly, the air distorted violently. Ji Dong only felt his body tighten, as if he had been tightly wrapped by something. This force was extremely strong, binding his body, causing him to be unable to release any form of energy. In the next moment, his body slowly floated up under the influence of this strong, binding force. Ji Dong did not move. He had never heard of imparting the demon realm, let alone seen it. Naturally, he did not know what the ancestor of the earth dragon was going to do. He followed the instructions of the ancestor of the earth dragon and closed his eyes, relaxed his body, and retracted his soul, waiting quietly. At this moment, Ji Dong suddenly felt a chill run through his body. A strange force brushed past the surface of his body. He immediately felt that the clothes on his body had turned into ashes and disappeared. His body was completely naked. I need to take off my clothes to impart the demon realm? Ji Dong was a little surprised. The ancestor of the earth dragon removed Ji Dong's clothes in the blink of an eye. Its big yellow eyes began to turn solemn. Not far away, the sacred evolution fire dragon had already stood up vigilantly and was observing the situation. However, it could not do anything even if it wanted to. The powerful aura released by the ancestor of the earth dragon made it impossible for it to get close. Powerful mana waves were released in the next moment. A layer of yellow light was like a ball of light, encircling Ji Dong's body. The ancestor of the earth dragon had already raised its other claw. It suddenly took a deep breath, and in the next moment, it grabbed the right claw that was controlling Ji Dong to float in the air. The huge left claw stabbed into the right claw. At this moment, it seemed as if the entire 3 Unity Mountain range trembled slightly. Chapter 494. The Earth Dragon Ancestor's left claw pierced through its right claw, and a powerful destructive force was unleashed on its body. However, the eyes of the Earth Dragon Ancestor were still as calm as ever, as though it wasn't stabbing into its own body at all. Drops of golden red liquid flowed out of the wound on the right claw of the Earth Dragon ancestor, dripping down from the sky towards the yellow sphere of light that was restraining Jidong. Strangely enough, when the golden red blood dripped onto the sphere of light, it would naturally seep into it. The body of the Earth Dragon ancestor was so huge that a single drop of blood was enough for Jidong to feel liquid dripping onto his body. The liquid was scorching hot and even soothing. It flowed down from his head to his feet. What's going on? Jidong had his eyes closed, and he couldn't use his soul to check. Although he was puzzled, he couldn't understand what was happening. However, he wasn't in a hurry and continued to relax his body, waiting quietly. Drop after drop of blood dripped down from the claw of the Earth Dragon ancestor. The yellow sphere of light that was enveloping Jidong was like a container, constantly carrying the drops of dragon blood. The dragon blood seeped into Jidong's body and began to gather at his feet. Gradually, it soaked his entire body, from his feet to his calves, then to his waist, and all the way up. Jidong didn't know what this boiling hot liquid was, but he could clearly feel waves of hot air seeping into his body from the liquid. Even his phoenix dance dragon snake transformation couldn't stop the aura of this liquid at all. His nose twitched slightly. How sensitive was Jidong's sense of smell? What he smelled was a thick fragrance. This fragrance was very strange. Jidong had always been sensitive to all sorts of smells, and as long as he smelled it once, he would never forget it. However, he was certain that this fragrance was something he had never smelled before. Jidong's body had been soaked in the blood of a rank 10 giant dragon, Frost. However, how could the dragon race's bloodline compare to the Earth Dragon ancestor? Its blood was completely salty and fishy. Although the Earth Dragon ancestor had been sealed here for countless years, the blood that flowed in its body was the blood of the dragon race's primogenitor, which was also the purest bloodline of the dragon race. It was using this blood to soak Jidong's body. That fragrance seemed to be a light fragrance. Smelling it, Jidong's first impression was that it was noble. Even in his previous life, he had never smelled such a fragrance that exuded a noble aura. This feeling was very wonderful. It was as if at this moment, he was standing in a magnificent and luxurious hall, receiving the worship of tens of thousands of people. Just what is the Earth Dragon ancestor doing? The doubts in Jidong's heart grew stronger. He had no idea what the Earth Dragon ancestor was using to soak his body. What did this have to do with imparting the demon domain? In his opinion, imparting the demon domain should be a communication between souls. The Earth Dragon ancestor would tell him the method of cultivating and using the demon domain, and then let him cultivate continuously. Then, he would possess the demon domain that could strip away the elements. However, at this moment, it didn't feel like that was the case. He had no idea what the Earth Dragon ancestor was going to do. Finally, the drops of blood flowed over Jidong's neck and completely soaked his body. He could no longer breathe because of the blood. The Earth Dragon ancestor pulled out his left claw from his right claw contentedly. When the last drop of dragon blood landed on the yellow ball of light and filled it up completely, it was also the moment when the wound on the Earth Dragon ancestor's right claw automatically healed. The Earth Dragon ancestor exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. His eyes clearly became tired as he mumbled to himself, "Boy Jidong, I hope my efforts weren't in vain. My daughter, whether or not you can capture this boy's heart is up to you. Daddy can only make him your protector, but I can't change his mind and make him your lover." The sacred evolution fire dragon was still staring at the Earth Dragon ancestor. However, there was no longer any hostility. Instead, it looked greedily at the golden red blood and the golden ball of light in the sky. It crawled forward quietly and watched from below. The Earth Dragon ancestor scolded with a smile. "You little thing, you've mutated to the point that even I can't recognize you. Don't worry, you won't be lacking in benefits. No matter what, you're still my descendant." At that moment, Jidong could no longer hear anything from the outside world. At that moment, even if he wanted to open his eyes or release his spiritual power, he could no longer do so. His body was completely surrounded by viscous liquid. He could no longer breathe, and even moving his body became difficult. When he turned over slightly, he could clearly feel the viscous liquid around him pressing against his body. Meanwhile, the heat that had previously scalded his body and made him feel extremely comfortable was starting to get hotter and hotter. Coupled with the fact that he could no longer breathe, the comfort gradually turned into pain. With Jidong's cultivation, it wouldn't be a problem for him to not breathe for an hour. However, he was not in a normal situation now. The liquid around him was constantly surging with heat, making it impossible for him to focus and adjust his body to resist the problem of not being able to breathe. In just a short while, his entire body was already swollen. The feeling of suffocation made him feel like his body was about to explode. The intense pain made him subconsciously start a struggle, wanting to break out of the binding formation in front of him. However, how could the Earth Dragon ancestor let him succeed? Circles of golden halos continuously surged out from the Earth Dragon ancestor's right claw and landed on the golden ball of light, strengthening its resistance. No matter how hard Jidong struggled, or even released his mana to break through the golden ball of light, he was unable to do so. Even his deity annihilation strike, which was aimed at the returning light ball, was ineffective. The reason was simple. The power of the deity annihilation strike was attacking the essence through the surface. This ball of light only had one layer, so how could there be any essence for him to attack? His mana could only leak out through the ball of light. The pain was getting more and more intense, and Jidong's struggles were getting more and more intense. In the beginning, he only struggled with his body. Then he started to use his mana, and finally, he released all his mana. The intense pain seemed to be tearing every cell in his body. He could no longer bear it. He only felt that he could explode and die at any time. What made Jidong the most uncomfortable was that his powerful Saint-tier soul power could not be released at all. There seemed to be a mystical power in the viscous liquid that prevented his soul power from leaking out. The Earth Dragon ancestor's tired gaze was focused on Jidong's movements in the ball of light. He had also been strengthening the defense of the ball of light without relaxing at all. As for Jidong's various struggles in the ball of light, he simply turned a blind eye to them. Jidong's struggle lasted for a full quarter of an hour before it started to weaken. This was not a problem of insufficient mana, but in the process of continuous struggle, the strong feeling of suffocation made it impossible for him to continue. He opened his mouth subconsciously, wanting to breathe. His consciousness had already started to blur, and large mouthfuls of viscous liquid were directly lured into his stomach. He only felt that his body was very, very heavy, and everything around him started to get lost. It was as if he had already entered another world of darkness, and there was another voice calling out to him. At this moment, all the pain had already left him, and only that voice calling out to him was so beautiful. This feeling, Jidong had experienced it once before. That time, it was when he had drunk 1,000-year-old fine wine in his previous life. When he woke up, he had already arrived at the Five Elements continent. That beautiful voice was the call of death. How powerful was Jidong's soul? At this moment, he woke up with a start. No, I can't die. I can't die just like this. I still have the flaming bar. I haven't completed my dying wish, no? The Earth Dragon ancestor had been paying attention to the changes in Jidong in the ball of light. What he wanted was the effect of destruction before reconstruction. Of course, he wouldn't let Jidong really die. He had been paying attention to the moment when Jidong was on the verge of death, when his soul was about to be separated from his body. That was the moment when life and death alternated. When that moment arrived, it would also be the crucial moment when he helped Jidong to come back to life. The longer it lasted, the closer Jidong was to death, and the greater the benefits he would receive. Seeing that Jidong was about to reach that state, the Earth Dragon ancestor couldn't help but feel nervous. Perhaps only the Earth Dragon ancestor would dare to help someone else absorb energy like this. After all, if something went wrong, and he didn't save him in time, the other party would really die. Only the Earth Dragon ancestor was confident that nothing would go wrong. However, Just as Ji Dong was about to reach that state, the Earth Dragon ancestor suddenly realized in shock that Ji Dong, who had stopped struggling in his blood, was moving again. An unparalleled power suddenly erupted from his body. A glaring red light rushed out of his body, followed by 9 other red lights at the same time. Strange yet tyrannical mana instantly erupted from his body, especially the piercing power of the red light. It actually pierced deeply into the yellow light emitted by the Earth Dragon ancestor. Dragon Valley. Chen Xishuan's entire body was trembling violently. She was originally sitting cross-legged in cultivation, but at this moment, her body started trembling without any warning. Meow Meow and Ah Jin, who were sitting beside her, were instantly shocked. Chen Xishuan, who was still very normal just a moment ago, why was there no color on her pretty face at this moment? Could it be that she had gone berserk? The two women were shocked. Just as they were about to take action, Chen Xishuan let out a cry and spat out a mouthful of blood. Her body went limp, and she slowly fell to the ground. Xishuan, what's wrong? Meow Meow hugged Chen Xishuan, while Ah Jin pinched her wrist. Ah Jin was the one who believed that Chen Xishuan would go berserk in her cultivation. Only she knew what Chen Xishuan's original identity was. She was once a god, so how could she possibly go berserk in her cultivation? This was practically a fantasy story. However, things had happened just like that. When Ah Jin examined her, he was shocked to discover that Chen Xishuan's vital signs were rapidly fading away. The most terrifying thing was that her soul seemed as if it was about to dissipate. It had become chaotic and disorderly. How could this be? Ah Jin shouted, Du Ming, Bauer, come here quickly. Everyone was cultivating in the Dragon Valley, so they were not far from each other. When they suddenly heard Ah Jin's loud call, Lan Bauer and Du Ming rushed over immediately. When they saw Chen Xishuan's state, they were also shocked. Ah Jin hurriedly said, Quick, use your demonic powers to ignite the vitality in her body. I will protect her soul. For some reason, Xishuan suddenly feels like her cultivation is about to dissipate. Meow Meow, go and invite His Majesty the Dragon Emperor and the Dragon Kings over. All right. Meow Meow quickly flew away. At this moment, hearing Ah Jin's voice, the other heavenly stem saints also gathered. Seeing Chen Xishuan's pale face, they could not help but feel nervous. It was not just because Chen Xishuan was a part of the heavenly stem saints. At the same time, each of them had already regarded her as Ji Dong's woman. Ji Dong was not here. If something happened to Chen Xishuan, how could they explain it to him when he returned? Ah Jin's choice was undoubtedly very correct. Among the 5 elements, water and wood were also known as water. They were one of the 5 elements that were best at controlling swallowing. Although it was not as good as the wood element, it was not far off. Extreme 9th water and 10th water demonic powers were slowly injected into Chen Xishuan's body. Immediately, the demonic powers in her body began to circulate. A layer of aquamarine halo gradually emerged from her body and slowly gathered the vitality that was about to dissipate. This was the armor of eternity starting to take effect. The extreme Shuang Shui that entered from the outside just happened to ignite the armor of eternity. With the injection of the extreme Shuang Shui demonic powers, Chen Xishuan's life was temporarily saved. Ah Jin sat cross-legged behind Chen Xishuan with a solemn expression. She placed her head on her lap and kept changing the shape of her hands. Then, she pointed at Chen Xishuan's head. Her powerful soul power directly entered Chen Xishuan's soul and forcibly comforted her soul that was about to dissipate. She did not allow it to leave Chen Xishuan's body. Once her soul leaked out of her body and dissipated in the air, even a deity would not be able to save her. Although Ah Jin did not know what had happened in this situation, the first thing she had to do was to save Chen Xishuan's life. This was the Dragon Valley, and there were many powerful cultivators in the Dragon Clan. There would always be a way. The reason why Chen Xishuan was in such a situation could be said to be entirely because of Ji Dong. When Ji Dong fell into a state of near death, the first person to feel it was not the Earth Dragon ancestor, but Chen Xishuan. She was the flaming bar. How could she not feel anything if something happened to Ji Dong? Moreover, she had merged her soul with Ji Dong many times. The two of them had an extremely close relationship. When she suddenly realized that Ji Dong was about to fall into a state of near death without any warning, Chen Xishuan instantly panicked and released her own soul power without holding back. Chapter 495. When she realized that Ji Dong's life was in danger, Chen Xishuan wanted to communicate with him and help him fuse his soul to save his life. At the same time, she used her divine sense at all costs to forcefully awaken the 9 natal red lotus seeds in Ji Dong's body. Ji Dong had forgotten about the red lotus seeds in his suffocating state. When he fell into a state of near death, he could no longer contact her even if he wanted to. The Earth Dragon's ancestor's demonic power was so strong that the isolation he had on Ji Dong was not only in terms of demonic power, but also in terms of soul. Although Chen Xishuan had a divine sense that was of a higher level than the Earth Dragon's ancestor, in terms of actual power, it was not that strong. When her divine sense forcefully broke through the Earth Dragon's ancestor's restraint on Ji Dong and awakened the 9 lotus seeds to protect him, her divine sense shattered. Although the shattered divine sense automatically returned to her body, it could no longer be the dominant soul. Without the source of divine sense, her soul naturally could not be restrained. On top of that, the fusion of souls was completely blocked outside, and she was hit hard. That was why this situation happened. If it were not for Ah Jin and Meow Meow's timely response, she would have really died. In order to save Ji Dong, she would definitely pay any price. Ji Dong went from a state of near death to an extremely violent state. It was because of Chen Xishuan's help, as well as his own strong will to live. The 9 natal red lotus seeds protected him, and the powerful power rejuvenated his body that had been suffering from lack of oxygen. At the same time, he released the sword of the fire god. In an instant, he forcefully pushed himself to his peak state, and with a thrust of the sword, he was about to break through the restraint. This brat. The Earth Dragon's ancestor grunted speechlessly. He retracted his right claw, and the ball of light fell into his claw. Then, the elemental stripping domain was released, forcefully stripping away the fire element in the ball of light. Immediately, Ji Dong's demonic power, which had been extremely powerful before, suddenly leaked out. Although this thrust was still a divine weapon, it was much more powerful. With a poof, the sword of the fire god successfully pierced through the yellow barrier, but Ji Dong's body did not follow. The Earth Dragon's ancestor snorted. He raised his left claw and flicked it in the air. Immediately, dense rays of light crashed into the yellow ball of light, forcefully restraining Ji Dong again. The golden red blood in the ball of light also seemed to be boiling, constantly pouring into Ji Dong's body through his pores. The state of near death was over, and the absorption could not be any more perfect. The Earth Dragon's ancestor naturally did not need to let him experience the pain from before again. Ji Dong's body trembled. He felt as if all 6 million pores on his body had opened up under the effect of some strange and mysterious power, greedily absorbing the viscous liquid around him. His body was like a huge vortex, constantly devouring the strange power. The burning pain and the intense feeling of suffocation from before gradually disappeared. The feeling became more and more comfortable, and Ji Dong's tense nerves gradually relaxed. The extreme fatigue caused him to fall asleep just like that. The Earth Dragon's ancestors' eyes shone with a hint of admiration. As expected of the son that my daughter has taken a liking to, you do have some tricks up your sleeves. To think that you can still forcefully counterattack in a state of near death. Just this survival ability alone is something that is rarely seen in our dragon race. Not bad. This time it wasn't a waste. As he said that, he waved his hand, and the yellow ball of light that was wrapped around Ji Dong floated down and landed on a rock by his feet. The faint yellow light kept flashing, and Ji Dong's figure was faintly discernible within it. Sob sob. At this moment, 2 fawning voices were heard. The Earth Dragon's ancestor turned his head and saw that both the sacred evolution fire dragon's dragon heads were raised, looking at him with great desire. He immediately said in annoyance, "I didn't expect this kid to be able to absorb all the essence in my blood. I thought he would be able to leave some for you." Sob sob. Mao Tai and Wulianya still looked pitiful as they whimpered softly at the Earth Dragon's ancestor. The Earth Dragon's ancestor said helplessly, all right. You two lucked out." He flicked his left claw where his right claw was previously injured. Immediately, 2 drops of sticky golden-red blood flew out and landed in the mouths of Mao Tai and Wulianya respectively. The sacred evolution fire dragon's body trembled violently and then immediately curled up. It coiled on the spot and closed its eyes. It wasn't willing to waste any of its blood. Jidong didn't know what it was, but they were very clear about it. Their bodies were instinctively filled with desire for the blood of the Earth Dragon's ancestor. This was something that even the Dragon Emperor wouldn't be able to get his hands on. It was a treasure that was even more precious than a treasure. Moreover, they were from the dragon race to begin with. The Earth Dragon's ancestor let out a long breath and muttered to himself, "I'm so tired. This kid injured me, and yet I'm still helping him like this. Just thinking about it makes me feel unbalanced. If it wasn't for my daughter, I would definitely torture him for a few days like the Dragon Emperor to vent my anger." Jidong naturally didn't know what the Earth Dragon's ancestor was feeling at the moment. He was now completely in a deep sleep, and it was a deep sleep in a fetal state. His entire body was immersed in the dragon blood in the golden ball of light, and it was as though he had returned to his mother's womb. Every pore on his body was constantly absorbing the energy contained in the blood. After the previous round of absorption and swallowing, he had already absorbed 1/3 of the blood in the ball of light. The remaining 2/3 was still in the process of being absorbed. Layers of faint air currents were constantly released from Jidong's body. The color of the air currents was very faint, but it was still barely discernible. Although the Earth Dragon's ancestor was tired, he still focused on Jidong's body, silently sensing the changes in his body. And among humans, this kind of physique is not bad. What kind of dragon's blood was soaked in before? It seems to be a water attribute dragon. However, there seems to be a strange power that harmonized the attributes of the dragon's blood. Not only did it not have a negative effect, it instead complemented each other. How strange. This brat's body also has the bloodline of the vermilion bird and the bloodline of the flying serpent. No wonder his resistance is so strong. This time, he has also absorbed my blood. In the future, even if someone wants to kill this brat, it will be very difficult. This is my work. The Earth Dragon's ancestors' words weren't an exaggeration. Regardless of whether it was the snow dragon Feng Shuang, the soaring serpent, or the vermilion bird, although their blood was very precious and possessed an extremely large amount of magic compared to the blood of the ancestor dragon, the Earth Dragon ancestor, they were worlds apart. The Earth Dragon ancestor was a powerful creature that had existed since the birth of this world. For millions of years, it had been absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the 3 Unity Mountain range to nourish itself and expel the impurities in its body. It could be said that every drop of its blood was the most precious thing in the world. Not to mention absorbing it while bathing. Just drinking a little was enough to change a normal person's physique and increase their lifespan by at least 3 times. And now that Jidong was completely immersed in the Earth Dragon ancestor's blood and absorbing it, the benefits it brought him were incomparable to the vermilion bird, the soaring serpent, and the wind frost. Therefore, it wasn't wrong for the Earth Dragon ancestor to say that Jidong was its work. As the days passed, Jidong's body continuously secreted all the impurities, even the tiny impurities in his magic, turned into air currents and quietly dissipated. His body became purer and purer. As he soaked in the golden red blood, even his skin emitted the same luster. The strangest thing was that the holy king of Godfire armor that he had fused into his body using the divine fusion art would often appear and disappear. The originally dark red luster had completely turned into a golden red. It had fused with Jidong, so it naturally received the benefits that Ji-dong received. The Holy King of Godfire armor had already been a substandard god item for a very long time, and it was being nurtured in the chaotic fire in Ji-dong's body. At this moment, after being soaked in the Earth Dragon ancestor's blood, the Holy King of Godfire armor had already reached a special state of saturation. In other words, it was only a hair's breadth away from breaking through to the god level and becoming a true god item refined from Ji-dong's body. When did humans grow the fastest? Without a doubt, it was in the womb. From a simple cell to a baby that weighed several kilograms, how many times had the body grown? How many times had the body been perfected? At this moment, the Earth Dragon ancestor had created an environment similar to that of a mother's womb for Ji-dong. What satisfied the Earth Dragon ancestor the most was that under the suffocating pressure, Ji-dong's body's potential exploded and he actually entered the embryonic state. In this way, he could undoubtedly achieve twice the results with half the effort. This was also why the Earth Dragon ancestor said that Ji-dong would not leave anything for the sacred evolution fire dragon. With the guarantee of embryonic state, how could Ji-dong's body let go of any nourishment? In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. The Earth Dragon ancestor's blood in the yellow ball of light was getting lesser and lesser. The Earth Dragon ancestor did not add any more blood. There was a limit to the absorption of dragon blood. It was not that Ji-dong could not absorb anymore. However, if he continued to absorb, then he would very likely turn from a human into a dragon, which would be detrimental to his future cultivation. From a cultivation point of view, no race's talent could compare to a human's. Finally, on the 18th day, the Earth Dragon ancestor's blood in the ball of light had completely disappeared, and the sacred fire Saint King armor on Ji-dong's body was completely revealed. This armor had truly fused perfectly with his body. Moreover, under the effect of the Earth Dragon ancestor's blood, it had fused perfectly with Ji-dong's Phoenix Dance Dragon Snake transformation. From now on, as long as Ji-dong used the Phoenix Dance Dragon Snake transformation, the sacred Fire Saint King armor would naturally appear. On the surface, the sacred Fire Saint King armor had changed quite a bit compared to before. This change was mainly concentrated on the surface of the armor. Originally, every piece of the armor was very distinct. The pauldron was the pauldron, and the breastplate was the breastplate. But now, it felt like they were connected and fused together. Moreover, the golden red surface of the armor was no longer smooth, but had the shape of scales. It was like plate armor had become scale armor, and these scales looked like the scales on a miniature version of the Dragon Emperor. The golden red light shone brightly. The Earth Dragon ancestor was not of the fire attribute. Clearly, this was the result of the sacred Fire Saint King armor and Ji-dong absorbing its blood and combining it with his own dual fire attributes. It was also a unique color that belonged to Ji-dong. Sitting there, the hideous mask on Ji-dong's face had also changed strangely. The hideous mask that looked like the radiance of the sun now had an image that looked like a brand. This image was in the shape of a dragon's head. A majestic dragon's head, just like the sacred Yin fire dragon. It was the image of the Yin Huang mystical dragon's head. The wings on his back had become more solid. Only the wings and the mask were not covered in scales. On the wings, golden red feathers drooped. The shape of these feathers was exactly the same as the vermilion bird's wings. Back then, this pair of wings had been bestowed by the vermilion bird. From the looks of it, Ji-dong's sacred Fire Saint King armor seemed to be related to many powerful mythological beasts, but they were not complete replicas. It seemed a little odd, but when all of this was put together, it was extremely harmonious. From Ji-dong's body, there was even a layer of golden red light. The Earth Dragon ancestor had noticed the golden red light on Ji-dong's body for a few days. This layer of light had only appeared after the sacred Fire Saint King armor had completely appeared on his body. It had been a full 3 days now. After careful examination and feeling the changes on Ji-dong's body, the Earth Dragon ancestor could confirm that this light was not from the sacred Fire Saint King armor, but from his body. But why would his body emit this golden red light? This puzzled the Earth Dragon ancestor. Could it be because of the sword of the fire god? But the sword of the fire god was red. If it was only because of the sword of the fire god, then the light from his body should also be red. Where did this gold come from? Suddenly, the earth dragon ancestor thought of the 9 golden red lotus seeds that Ji-dong emitted. Could this be the effect of the 9 lotus seeds? If I'm not wrong, it could very well be left behind by the queen of the flaming bar. That's right. I was wondering why this kid could emit his own unique light. So that's why. That should be the result of his body fusing with the queen of the flaming bar's unique light. The earth dragon ancestor's judgment was basically correct, but there was one thing he didn't know. Ji-dong did not absorb the 9 lotus seeds. This was because with his current strength, he was not able to absorb the 9 red lotus seeds. Before the flaming bar died, it injected the 9 lotus seeds into Ji-dong's body and left an imprint on them. Only when Ji-dong had the strength to activate the imprint would the effects of the 9 lotus seeds be fully displayed. This was obviously not the time. Ji-dong had evolved. His entire body and the sacred fire Saint King armor had evolved, and he had his own unique light. Chapter 496. In a sense, the exclusive brilliance no longer belonged to the category of a magician. This color symbolized a trend and was completely a characteristic of the saint tier. When one cultivated to the saint tier, no matter what kind of creature it was, they would have a color that belonged to them. This was the so-called exclusive brilliance. Even if the exclusive brilliance of 2 saint tier powerhouses were both golden red, there would definitely be a certain difference between them, and they would never be exactly the same. The golden red became Ji-dong's exclusive brilliance. When the earth dragon ancestor saw the exclusive brilliance appear on his body, it was not very surprised. It had long expected this. The reason was very simple. Ji-dong's own soul power was already at the saint tier. This time, it had used its own blood to forcefully transform Ji-dong's body, helping Ji-dong to completely merge the several powers in his body with his own. There would no longer be any power of the soaring serpent, the power of the vermilion bird, or the power of the dragon. From now on, there would only be Ji-dong's power. In a sense, the strength of Ji-dong's body had already been raised to the edge of the saint tier, which was why the exclusive brilliance was produced. This exclusive brilliance symbolized that a magician already had the absolute potential to become a saint tier. Usually, when it appeared, it was the moment when one was about to advance into the saint tier. The timing of Ji-dong's appearance could be said to be extremely strange. Phew! Ji-dong exhaled a long breath, and the entire yellow ball of light was instantly filled with the golden red light. Even Ji-dong's body was covered and could not be seen clearly. What's going on? What happened? When Ji-dong slowly opened his eyes and saw the golden red light around him, he could not help but exclaim. When he subconsciously restrained his own mana, the surrounding golden red light immediately merged into his body like rivers flowing into the sea. An unprecedented feeling of power instantly spread throughout his body. That comfort made every cell in his body moan in pleasure. Ji-dong could not help but suddenly stretch his body and let out a long howl towards the sky. A crisp shattering sound rang out around his body. The yellow ball of light that had enveloped him for 18 days quietly shattered. The surrounding scenery reappeared in front of Ji-dong's eyes, and everything returned to normal. Ji-dong saw the incomparably huge Earth Dragon ancestor in front of him with a single glance. The Earth Dragon ancestor was looking down at him. He subconsciously looked down at his body and was instantly stunned by the changes in the Divine Fire Saint King armor. The current Divine Flame Sage King armor was emitting a golden red halo. Adding on the reflection of the scales, it was much more dazzling than before. Is this still my Sacred Fire King armor? A faint warmth was being nurtured on the surface of the armor. A huge amount of mana was constantly flowing through the armor into his body. Ji-dong could clearly feel that the power contained within the armor could break through that layer of restraint at any time and truly enter the level of a divine weapon. Everything that had happened before gradually came back to his mind. With how smart Ji-dong was, he had already formed a general idea of the entire process in his quick thinking. Looking at the scales on the sacred Fire King armor that were the same as the Dragon Emperor's, his body suddenly trembled. He raised his head to look at the Earth Dragon Ancestor, and with a plop, he knelt in front of the Earth Dragon Ancestor and kowtowed, saying, "Thank you, Senior, for fulfilling my wish." The Earth Dragon Ancestor snorted and said, "I didn't fulfill your wish. I did this with conditions. Before, I promised you that I would only pass on the demon realm to you, but I never said that I would help you improve your body. Now, your body has already been modified by me, and you don't know how much stronger it is before. You must also pay the compensation I asked for." Jidong was originally filled with gratitude, but after hearing the Earth Dragon Ancestor say this, he felt a little helpless. This was simply forcing him to buy and sell, and it had already become a reality. He couldn't even return the goods if he wanted to. What compensation does Senior want? I don't seem to have anything that I can help you with. As long as I can do it, Jidong will never refuse. Of course, emotional matters are excluded. The ancestor of the Earth Dragon snorted and said, "Don't worry, I won't force you to marry my daughter. My daughter wouldn't be happy that way either. My request is simple. You've taken some benefits from me, and your strength has increased a step further. It can be said that from now on, no one below the Saint tier will be able to kill you. My request is simple. From now on, you have to take good care of my daughter on my behalf. I can't leave this place, and I've already given her everything that I can. I'm not a qualified father, and the reason why I'm helping you become stronger is so that you can protect her better." Hearing such a request from the Earth Dragon Ancestor, Jidong couldn't help but feel a little dazed. He had thought that the Earth Dragon Ancestor would ask for some harsh conditions. "Senior, even if you didn't ask, I would still do it. Jean isn't just your daughter, she's also my partner. Since you've asked me, I promise you that I'll do my best to protect Jean as long as I'm alive. If I really meet an enemy that I can't handle, then I'll definitely die in front of her." Jidong intentionally added the words, "as long as you're alive," but the Earth Dragon Ancestor wouldn't understand. Although Jidong knew that he had received a great favor from the Earth Dragon Ancestor this time, it wouldn't affect his determination to look for the flaming bar. The Earth Dragon Ancestor nodded and said, "Among you youngsters, you have the greatest potential. That's why I've chosen you. In the near future, you'll be facing the powerhouses of the Dark Five Elements mainland. While you've been cultivating, I've discussed with the Dragon Emperor. There's a secret about the Dragon Clan that I can tell you. Perhaps it'll be of help when you face the enemies of the Dark Five Elements mainland in the future. Senior, please tell me." Jidong said respectfully. The Earth Dragon Ancestor said, "The heavens and earth give birth to all living things. In a sense, the Dark Five Elements mainland can be considered a reflection of the Light Five Elements mainland. Almost everything is almost the same as the Light Five Elements mainland, except that they lean more towards darkness. Whether it's mentality or mana, light and darkness are like day and night, dominating the entire world. In the Dark Five Elements mainland, the Dragon Clan also exists. You should know this as well. What I want to tell you is that every Dragon Emperor of the Dragon Clan doesn't have a single attribute. They all have a hidden attribute that belongs to them. Of course, after I was sealed here, my hidden attribute disappeared." Hidden attribute? Jidong looked at the Earth Dragon Ancestor in astonishment. The Earth Dragon Ancestor nodded and said, "In other words, in our Light Five Elements mainland, every race has such a hidden attribute. It's just that only a few can display this hidden attribute. This is the name of our continent. In other words, other than the Earth attribute, the Dragon Emperor also possesses the special light attribute. On the other hand, the Dragon Emperor of the Darkness Five Elements mainland possesses the darkness attribute. Light and darkness are two strange attributes. When you encounter the darkness attribute, you must be careful. This time, your body has been soaked in my blood, and the appearance of your unique brilliance has made me feel that the light attribute that you possess will awaken in the near future. This will be the most advantageous weapon for you to defeat the darkness attribute. Only by perfectly attaching this light attribute to your ultimate dual fire attribute will you have the ability to destroy the darkness attribute. Do you understand? Light and darkness are mutually restraining. This was the first time that Ji Dong had heard of the existence of the light and darkness attributes. He nodded and said, "Senior, I definitely won't let you down. As long as I'm alive, I'll always be a friend of the Dragon Clan." The Earth Dragon ancestor waved his dragon claw at him and said, "You can leave now. I've done everything I can to help you. How far you can evolve in the future will depend on your own comprehension. Go and find your companions. I've already injected the elemental, stripping demon domain into your body through your blood. You'll have to continuously comprehend it as you battle. You're not me after all, so when I imparted this demon domain to you, I had two choices. The first was to impart the demon domain to you that could also cover a large area like mine, but its power would only be 30% of mine. The second was to greatly reduce the area that your demon domain could cover, but its power would not change. After considering your situation, I've chosen the latter for you. So, when you're able to completely grasp the elemental stripping demon domain, the area that you can strip away will be 1,000 meters in diameter. My descendants, which are your dragon companions, have also benefited from me. They're in a deep sleep over there, absorbing the energy. When they wake up, I'll naturally have them look for you. When you're ready to head to the core of the world, come visit me again." The sacred evolution fire dragon was coiled not far away from Ji Dong. With just a glance, Ji Dong could feel that their bodies seemed to have grown a little. Obtaining benefits from the Earth Dragon ancestor would definitely be of great help to them. This was also an opportunity for them. From the huge eyes of the Earth Dragon ancestor, Ji Dong could clearly see a trace of exhaustion. He did not speak again, but knelt down again and kowtowed 3 times to the Earth Dragon ancestor. Only then did he rise up, spread his wings, and flew towards the Dragon Valley. The Earth Dragon ancestor watched as Ji Dong's figure disappeared. His huge dragon eyes slowly closed as he muttered to himself, "Daughter, whether or not you can capture that kid's heart is up to you. I can only let him be your protector. I can't do anything about matters of the heart. That kid is really not bad. If he had given up on his mutated vermilion bird and ran away, I wouldn't have given him such a chance no matter what, and I wouldn't have allowed you to be with him in the future." As he flew into the air, Ji Dong felt that the air currents in the air seemed to have become a lot more solid. In the past, he had carefully sensed it, but at this moment, this feeling was exceptionally clear. It was as if his body had become lighter, and it was no longer a simple flapping of his wings to push the air to fly. Instead, it was as if the air was summoned by his will, and under his control, it was as if he was pushing his body. With this feeling, Ji Dong tried to retract the wings on his back. As expected, under the urging of his will, without the assistance of the wings, his body was still floating in the air, and he could still fly forward. This was clearly a height that only a supreme being could reach. After carefully sensing his own mana, Ji Dong realized that his mana was still at the realm of level 82, and there was no further increase. What's going on? His mana had clearly not increased, and his cultivation had not increased to the level of a supreme being, but he had the ability to control the air with just his will. Ji Dong was puzzled. He clearly remembered that his grandmaster, Yin Zhaoyang, had once said that when a demon master broke through the 9 crowns and entered the realm of a supreme being, he would be able to communicate perfectly with the elements in the air that were of the same attribute as him, and use these elements to push his body through the air. However, his current situation was different. What he felt was not the fire element pushing his body, but all the air was pushing him, and the speed of his flight was also increasing according to his will. While thinking, Ji Dong's will moved, and he used all his strength to control the air to push his body. Suddenly, his whole body shot up into the air like an arrow, and the scenery around him flashed like lightning. The speed was so fast that it was somewhat close to the speed of the sacred evolution fire dragon. However, Ji Dong's mana did not decrease with the increase in speed. What was consumed was his strength of soul. Suddenly, Ji Dong understood something. He could fly freely in the air, looking like a supreme master, but in fact it was not the same. After absorbing the blood of the Earth Dragon, his body's strength and sensitivity had reached another level. In this way, he could feel the subtle changes in the air and then communicate with the surrounding air through his strength of soul to achieve the purpose of flying. It sounded simple, but in fact, to achieve this step, even if one cultivated to the level of 9 crowns, it might not be possible. Jidong's saint-level strength of soul was a huge treasure trove for him, but he only had this treasure trove and could only use very little of it. This was because his other aspects were too far away from the saint level. This time, the strength of his body had increased and was close to or even reached the level of the saint level. This gave him a whole new feeling. It seemed that his mana did not increase, but Jidong was very clear that his strength had made a qualitative leap. Even if he met a strong person like Lin Qing, who was Taichung, he had the confidence to fight. At this time, it was noon, and the sky was especially sunny. When Jidong's body rushed into the sky, the sunlight shone on his body. His exclusive golden-red brilliance suddenly blossomed with thousands of rays of light. The resplendent brilliance made him look like a god descending from the heavens. The golden-red halo was like an auspicious cloud, slowly rising. Chapter 497. Jidong only managed to slow himself down after flying thousands of meters into the sky. Although his soul power was being consumed as he accelerated, it was being consumed at an extremely slow rate. His mid-stage Saint Soul power could at least allow him to fly at high speed for a day and a night without feeling exhausted. With a single thought, the evolved divine flame, Saint King armor, on Jidong's body transformed into a golden red radiance and entered his body. Under the control of Jidong's will, the vermilion bird bracelet spat out a set of clothes that enveloped his body. From the looks of it, everything seemed to have returned to normal. Under Jidong's deliberate restraint, the golden red radiance on his body slowly receded, revealing his healthy skin tone once again. However, something shocking still happened. His originally white hair actually turned jet black again, and the lines of his body seemed to have been resculpted. They were extremely perfect. Looking at his jet black hair, Jidong could not help but sigh. How great would it be if the flaming bar could recover like his hair? As he thought about this, Jidong descended from the sky and soared towards the Dragon Valley. Just as he was about to reach the sky above the Dragon Valley, a formless pressure welcomed him without any hesitation. This pressure was all too familiar to Jidong. Wasn't it coming from the Dragon Emperor? A smile appeared on his face. Jidong did not conceal his aura at all. His mid-stage Saint Soul power was fully released, forcefully withstanding the formless pressure, and even launched a counterattack. The Dragon Emperor's voice rang out. In the next moment, a resplendent light flashed by, and the Dragon Emperor, who had transformed into a human, appeared in front of Jidong. His skin seemed to be embedded with a layer of diamonds, and was exceptionally dazzling under the sunlight. When he saw Jidong, the Dragon Emperor could not help but be taken aback. He said, "It's actually you, kid. How is this possible? Why is your aura so similar to mine?" Jidong chuckled. "Senior Earth Dragon ancestor allowed me to soak my body in dragon blood. Isn't it normal for me to have a bit more dragon aura?" Only now did the Dragon Emperor come to a sudden understanding. However, his expression quickly became solemn as he said, "Kid, to think that you're still able to laugh. Do you know that friend of yours, Chen Xuan, is already at the critical moment of life and death?" "What did you say?" The smile on Jidong's face stiffened as shock filled his eyes. He had just woken up from his cultivation, so he had no idea what was going on in the outside world. After hearing the Dragon Emperor's words, he activated his soul power and subconsciously probed the bottom of the Dragon Valley in an attempt to contact Chen Xuan. However, he very quickly discovered that he could not find Chen Xuan's soul aura, and asked in shock, "Senior Dragon Emperor, what happened? What's going on?" The Dragon Emperor said in a deep voice, "I don't know what happened either. 18 days ago, Chen Xuan suddenly vomited blood and fainted. Elder Ajin and your companions forcefully used their demonic energy to preserve her life and ensure that her soul would not dissipate. After I went over, I discovered that Chen Xuan's soul seemed to have collapsed from the core. There's a strange power in her soul that even I can't do anything about. I could only temporarily seal her and imprison her body and soul in the tyrannical demon territory. Only then did I manage to temporarily preserve her life. I know that you can fuse your soul with her, and you're the only one who knows about her soul the best. Therefore, I tried to communicate with the ancestor to call you back, but the ancestor said that you're in closed-door cultivation and can't come back. You should hurry up and take a look. Ji-dong nodded hurriedly and instantly accelerated towards the bottom of the Dragon Valley. The Dragon Emperor only realized that Ji-dong already had the ability to fly when he saw that he did not release the Phoenix Dance Dragon Snake transformation. A trace of surprise flashed across the Dragon Emperor's eyes, and he was even a little envious and jealous. He thought to himself, the ancestor actually values Ji-dong so much. Even I didn't get such benefits from the ancestor. Ji-dong arrived at the bottom of the Dragon Valley in less than a dozen breaths' time as he accelerated at full speed. The Dragon Emperor also arrived at the same time. During this period, none of the giant dragons tried to stop him. Ji-dong did not have the time to feel the changes at this moment. In reality, the aura that contained the royal bloodline of the Dragon Clan was something that no giant dragon dared to offend. After arriving at the bottom of the Dragon Valley, Ji-dong took a step forward and darted into the cave where his partners usually cultivated at lightning speed. His body trembled the moment he entered the cave, and he stopped in his tracks. The Heavenly Stem holy disciples who were cultivating stopped almost at the same time. Tianji heaved a sigh of relief and said, Ji-dong, you're finally back. Today is your last chance. A gigantic diamond appeared in front of Ji-dong. Yes, it was a diamond. Chun Sichuan stood quietly in the 2-meter-tall diamond with a pale face, as if she had fainted. Ji-dong had only seen something similar when he saved Ajin back then. However, Ajin was not as weak as Chun Sichuan at that time. Separated by the gigantic diamond, Ji-dong could not sense Chun Sichuan's spiritual aura or life force at all. He only felt as if his heart had been pierced by countless sharp blades, and it was so painful that he could not breathe. Was it a relapse of an old injury? Ji-dong could still clearly remember the problem with the crack in Chun Sichuan's soul before he returned. However, he quickly rejected this thought because after that, he carefully examined the crack in Chun Sichuan's soul. He was completely confident that the crack would not relapse for at least a year unless it was forcefully triggered. 18 days ago, wasn't that the time when he was immersed in the blood of the Earth Dragon ancestor? The feeling of suffocation had once brought him to the brink of death. Heartleaf's unwillingness and the sudden surge of energy gave him the ability to struggle again. Ji-dong's brain quickly recalled everything that had happened at that time. It was a strange power, an incomparably familiar and intimate power that had awakened his soul that was about to perish, forcefully pulling him back from that near-death state. After that, he had truly begun to absorb the essence of the ancestral dragon blood of the Earth Dragon. It's her, it must be her. She used the fusion of souls to awaken my soul. Ji-dong's heart began to tremble. Of course, he knew that he had been restrained by the energy of the Earth Dragon ancestor at that time. The powerful energy of the Earth Dragon ancestor could create an extremely strong barrier to souls. However, she still awakened him under those circumstances. What price did she have to pay? Ji-dong did not dare to imagine it. He really did not dare to imagine it. However, he completely understood that Chun Sichuan had suddenly vomited blood and fainted 18 days ago because she wanted to save him. She had sensed the danger he was facing and wanted to awaken him at all costs. That was why she had ended up like this. Ji-dong could not help but feel a sharp pain in his heart when he thought of this. He stood there in a daze. The Heavenly Stem holy disciples stood up one after another and looked at the dazed Ji-dong. They could not help but look at each other. Ji-dong, if you have a way to save Sichuan, then hurry up and start. I've observed the heavens. You're the only one in the world who can save Sichuan. Fortunately, you've returned in time. Sichuan will definitely be safe. The Heavenly Secret's voice rang out in Ji-dong's ears. Ji-dong woke up and realized that his vision was already blurry. Tears flowed uncontrollably down his face. Heavens, why did you let me meet Sichuan and make her fall in love with me? Ji-dong really wanted to roar at the heavens. Everything that had happened since he had met Chen Sichuan flashed through his mind uncontrollably. From the day he had met her, she had always been quietly sacrificing herself for him. No matter how he had rejected her, she had never gotten angry. Instead, she had treated him even more gently and considerately. When he was in danger, she had always rushed forward without a care. Even if she had to give up her life, she would not hesitate to save him. Xixian, you're really too silly. You clearly know that my heart cannot contain you. I love the flaming bar. I can't share my heart with you. I can't betray the flaming bar. However, I owe you so much that I'm afraid I won't be able to repay you in this lifetime. At this moment, a trace of strange enlightenment rose in Ji Dong's heart. He seemed to see Chen Sichuan smile and also Raging Flame smile. It was the same gentleness, the same kindness. Their smiles overlapped in his soul. Then he saw light. He saw light. What was the source of light? They had told him that the source of light was kindness, selflessness, and dedication. Step by step, Ji Dong walked towards the huge diamond. When the heavenly stem holy disciples looked at Ji Dong's face, they were shocked to realize that Ji Dong seemed to be different from before. His originally mediocre appearance seemed to have become extraordinarily handsome. Moreover, his body was gradually emitting a golden red glow. There were no energy fluctuations in the glow, but it was this golden red glow that made them not dare to look directly at it. They could not even sense any changes in Ji Dong's body anymore. Finally, Ji Dong walked in front of the huge diamond seal. His right hand silently pressed on the diamond, and a gentle golden red glow immediately appeared around his body. In the blink of an eye, the huge diamond also emitted the same glow, illuminating Chen Sichuan, who was sealed inside. A slight tremor seemed to be emitted from Ji Dong's palm. In the next moment, the huge diamond lit up. It was originally covered by a layer of misty golden light, but now it actually emitted a resplendent golden red brilliance. Even Chen Sichuan, who was within it, was completely dyed in this layer of brilliance. Even though her face was unhealthily pale, when her peerless beauty was dyed in this layer of golden red light, she could not help but release a touching, poignant beauty. The men weren't the only ones who were stunned. Even Meow Meow, Lon Bauer, and the rest were stunned. This poignant beauty infected everyone's hearts, and everyone had different feelings. In their eyes, Ji Dong, who was also emitting a golden red glow, was like a prince who was going to rescue a sleeping princess. He stood there quietly. The heavenly stem saints weren't the only ones who were dumbfounded. At the same time, the Dragon Emperor who came with Ji Dong was also dumbfounded. When the golden red light was emitted from Ji Dong's body, the Dragon Emperor had already realized many things. The huge diamond began to melt, melting in the golden red brilliance. That was the seal of the Dragon Emperor's tyrannical, demonic domain. Yet it quietly melted under the immersion of Ji Dong's unique brilliance. A majestic, and radiant aura was emitted from Ji Dong's body without reservation. The entire cave seemed to have been illuminated at this moment. Everything was affected by this radiance that made everyone feel extremely comfortable, regardless of their attributes. This is the power of light. The Dragon Emperor's eyes had unknowingly widened. If the Dragon Kings of the Dragon Tribe were here, they would definitely think that their eyes were playing tricks on them. That majestic and noble dragon aura, the radiant aura that only the Dragon Emperor possessed, was actually emitted from a human. It was also this aura that caused the Dragon Emperor's tyrannical demon territory to melt in the golden red glow without any resistance. The diamond seal disappeared quietly, finally revealing Chen Sichuan inside. However, the disappearance of the seal did not cause Chen Sichuan to collapse. The heavenly stem holy disciples could feel that there seemed to be an airflow in the air surrounding Chen Sichuan's body, supporting her so that she wouldn't collapse. The instant Chen Sichuan was freed from the diamond seal, Ji Dong's expression changed. Without the restraint of the seal, he could immediately sense Chen Sichuan's current state. Her soul wasn't weak, and her life force was no different from normal. However, the instant the diamond seal disappeared, Ji Dong immediately sensed Chen Xishuan's spiritual power and life force erupting from her body. Her body was like a balloon that had a hole pierced by the removal of the seal, causing all the essence in her body to leak out. Ji Dong didn't have time to think about why this was happening. The instant Chen Xishuan's soul appeared, Ji Dong's spiritual power surged up in an overwhelming manner and instantly enveloped her soul. At the same time, Ji Dong took a step forward and arrived in front of Chen Xishuan. The core of life hung around her neck, and Ji Dong's hands were already pressing on her chest and forehead without hesitation. A golden red halo continuously surged out of Ji Dong's body. That was the unique brilliance produced by the complete fusion of his mana and soul power. It completely enveloped his and Chen Xishuan's bodies, making them look like a giant egg. Chapter 498. The chaotic state of Chen Xishuan's soul was shocking. It was because she had lost control of her soul that her life force had begun to dissipate. Therefore, helping her recover her soul was the most important thing. After all, Ji Dong and Chen Xishuan had fused their souls many times. As soon as his soul connected, Chen Xishuan's soul naturally fused with it. It fused with Ji Dong's soul so that it wouldn't scatter. Her soul wasn't wary of Ji Dong's soul at all. Ji Dong used his soul power to form an energy shield to prevent Chen Xishuan's soul from escaping. At the same time, he used his hand on Chen Xishuan's chest to stimulate the core of life with his mana. Like his soul power, the core of life converged Chen Xishuan's vitality and released more vitality to nourish Chen Xishuan's body. This was to ensure that there was nothing wrong with her body. Only in this way could her body recover after her soul recovered. After completing all this, Ji Dong carefully sensed Chen Xishuan's soul. His saint-level soul power was extremely powerful. After absorbing all of Chen Xishuan's soul, he carefully sent it back into Chen Xishuan's mind. At the same time, he used his own soul to form a barrier in her sea of soul, restraining her soul in its original position. For Ji Dong, the biggest problem now was how to stabilize Chen Xishuan's soul. Only by stabilizing her soul in his sea of soul could he save her. However, it was easier said than done. Now, her soul gave Ji Dong the feeling that it was chaotic and disordered. It seemed like it had lost its core and couldn't restrain itself at all. If this continued, he could only protect her life like the Dragon Emperor did, but he couldn't really wake her up. No, I can't let this happen. She became like this because of me. No matter what, I have to save her. Ji Dong made up his mind. After thinking about it carefully for a while, he decided to look for an opportunity in Chen Xishuan's soul. The most mysterious thing about everyone was the soul. The soul itself was an illusory existence. No one knew how to effectively cultivate it, and no one could completely understand what was in it. Ji Dong couldn't do it, not even God. However, since his soul had reached the saint level and he had a series of fortuitous encounters, Ji Dong had made great progress in controlling his soul. Although he couldn't figure out the cause of Chen Xishuan's problem, he could use his soul power to conduct a comprehensive scan and exploration of her soul. After stabilizing Chen Xishuan's soul, Ji Dong began to scan her soul bit by bit in an attempt to find out what was wrong with her soul. This concerned Chen Xishuan's life and death. Therefore, Ji Dong was extremely meticulous in the investigation of his soul for fear of missing any clues. Time passed by bit by bit. The Heavenly Stem holy disciples couldn't be bothered with cultivating anymore. They were quietly watching the golden red light ball in front of them. Although they didn't know what had really happened, they knew that Chen Xishuan's current situation was closely related to Ji Dong through the prediction of the heavenly secrets. Ji Dong was looking for the core of Chen Xishuan's soul. If he could find the broken core of her soul and find a way to help her recondense her soul, everything would be smooth. The painstaking search was a long and boring process. However, Ji Dong was extremely patient. He didn't want to miss out on even the slightest detail. Finally, after an unknown period of time, Ji Dong sensed an extremely faint trace of red in Chen Xishuan's soul. This trace of red was very messy and its color was erratic. To Ji Dong's surprise, The trace of red actually approached him when he sensed his soul probing. Not only did it not disperse, but it also felt very close to Ji Dong's soul. This extremely close and familiar feeling made Ji Dong's saint-level soul tremble slightly. However, this feeling was very illusory. He wanted to capture this feeling carefully, but he couldn't figure it out no matter how hard he tried. Ji Dong would never have thought that this faint trace of soul fluctuation was the consciousness of the flaming bar. However, this consciousness was too weak after possessing Chun Sichuan, so Ji Dong couldn't tell it was the consciousness of the flaming bar. Furthermore, this sense of familiarity came from Chun Sichuan. It could be said that he had missed the best opportunity to reunite with the flaming bar. Ji Dong immediately used his own soul to surround the trace of red soul that had been attracted to him and controlled it. He knew that he had probably found the source of the problem. This should be the core of Chun Sichuan's soul. Since it was broken, there should be more than one trace. With this discovery, Ji Dong's confidence increased greatly. He continued to search, almost like a carpet search, not letting go of any possibility. Hard work paid off. After searching with all his might, he finally found traces of broken red consciousness from Chun Sichuan's broken soul and gathered them together. Ji Dong was surprised to find that although his soul had fused with Chun Sichuan's, he couldn't fuse with this red soul. He was only a saint-level soul, so how could he fuse with a god-level consciousness? He naturally couldn't figure this out. The feeling of fatigue kept appearing. This was clearly caused by overusing his soul. This was the first time that Ji Dong had encountered such a situation. It could be seen that he had expended a lot of energy searching for Chun Sichuan's soul this time. However, now that it was a critical moment, he didn't dare to relax at all. He concentrated on sensing the changes within and confirmed that there were no more red souls left outside. Only then did he use his own soul to gather these red souls together and observe the changes within. In Ji Dong's opinion, if he gathered these scattered soul cores together, these souls would be able to fuse together again and restore the core. Then, he would be able to gather the power of his soul again. However, he soon discovered that his thinking was completely wrong. Ji Dong's own soul also had a core. It was an existence like the pearl of chaos and was extremely solid, just like the silver core of the Milky Way. However, Chun Sichuan's soul core seemed so tiny to him. Not only was it chaotic, but it was also very weak. Apart from not being affected by the soul fusion, it was a world of difference compared to his own soul. Ji Dong didn't think too much about this situation. After all, he had a saint-level soul, so it was normal for Chun Sichuan's soul to be weaker than his. However, it was this weak soul core that stubbornly refused to fuse with each other no matter how much pressure he exerted on his soul. It was as if they had nothing to do with each other. Ji Dong now completely believed in Tianji's words. Apart from himself, there was indeed no one else who could help her. Relying on the soul fusion, he was able to find these soul cores and gather them together. All of this was based on the premise that Chun Sichuan's soul did not reject his soul at all. However, if he couldn't fuse with these soul cores and restore them to their core status, all his previous efforts would be in vain. What should I do? It wasn't easy to find these soul cores, but I can't make them fuse with each other. What should I do? Just as Ji Dong was at a loss of what to do, he suddenly felt as if a strange force had been triggered in his body. He was instantly taken aback. At this moment, all his energy was focused on protecting Chun Sichuan's body and soul. When his body suddenly encountered a problem, he was instantly shocked and hurriedly separated a trace of his soul to return to his body to investigate. After this investigation, Ji Dong immediately discovered that the problem was actually from the 9 natal red lotus seeds that Flaming Bar had left for him. For some unknown reason, the 9 lotus seeds were actually trembling slightly and even emitting a somewhat excited aura. What's wrong with them? Could it be that they feel the exhaustion of my soul and want to help me? This was not the first time Ji Dong had used the natal red lotus seeds. Even the unique brilliance that he was producing this time was related to them. However, as for the actual use of these 9 lotus seeds, Ji Dong was not clear. He only felt that every time he was in danger, they would appear in time. Now that he felt that they were stirring, he naturally, subconsciously thought that it was because he had overexerted his soul power. At that moment, he did not think too much about it and immediately used the trace of his soul to approach the 9 lotus seeds. The moment Jidong's soul came into contact with the 9 lotus seeds, the 9 lotus seeds suddenly moved at the same time. Jidong's soul became their trajectory and bridge. Following this trace of soul connection, it actually penetrated into the world of Jidong's soul at lightning speed. This situation immediately gave Jidong a shock. In the next moment, he immediately felt his weak soul suddenly tremble. A warm and nourishing feeling had appeared in the depths of his soul and quietly spread to every corner of his soul. The previous feeling of exhaustion immediately disappeared. When his consciousness returned to the sea of his soul, he could not help but be stunned. At this moment, the 9 natal red lotus seeds were currently surrounding the broken core of Chun Sichuan's soul, releasing a faint golden red light. The red soul that had not reacted at all, even when he tried his best to compress, it had actually started to slowly fuse under the stimulation of the golden red light. This works too. Jidong immediately reacted after a short moment of sluggishness. As expected of a part of Flaming Bar's body, the effect of these 9 lotus seeds was actually so powerful. A warm and strange feeling spread in Jidong's heart. Flaming Bar, even though you're no longer here, you still saved me many times and even saved my friend. How could Jidong know that his 9 natal red lotus seeds had sensed Flaming Bar's divine sense, and thus floated up through his soul? They were originally from the same source of power, and these 9 lotus seeds released the power of Flaming Bar's origin, which helped her divine sense to fuse again. Now, Jidong had become a bystander. Seeing that Chun Sichuan's soul origin was gradually recovering, he was relieved. Smart people were not always so smart. Wasn't he a very obvious example at this moment? As the divine sense fused again, Flaming Bar's consciousness finally gradually awakened. After this divine sense fused again, she immediately felt the existence of the 9 lotus seeds around her. They were originally a part of her body, and that urgent affinity made Flaming Bar feel very comfortable. Where is this? This is Jidong's soul. After her mind recovered, her divine sense gradually recovered with the help of the natal red lotus seeds. Flaming Bar also gradually understood what was happening in front of her. When her divine sense was shattered in order to save Jidong, she thought that everything was over. Her last thought was that she could save Jidong, but she did not expect that she would wake up one day. This time, it was not the power of a god, but Jidong. With her divine sense, she only needed to think briefly to understand what had happened. With a slight movement of her divine sense, she had already reunited with her scattered souls that had been collected by Jidong and quickly recovered. Jidong also felt the changes on Chun Sichuan's side. Once he realized that Chun Sichuan's soul was showing signs of recovery, Jidong could not help but be overjoyed. He even carefully urged his soul to guard outside, helping her to collect all the souls. As the source of souls, Flaming Bar's divine sense had recovered. It was naturally much easier to collect the souls around her. In just a short while, all the scattered souls of Chun Sichuan had already coiled around the divine sense that had gathered together, looking like a cluster of stars. This was the first time Jidong had observed a person's soul so closely. He could not help but gasp in amazement at everything he saw. This feeling was simply too wonderful, especially since this soul was completely defenseless against him. Chun Sichuan could also clearly feel the joy and happiness in Jidong's soul. She also heaved a huge sigh of relief. The fact that Jidong was able to save her meant that he was fine. Moreover, from the contact between their souls, she could feel that Jidong's soul was clearly more stable than before. Moreover, he seemed to be more relaxed when he was controlling it. It was obvious that his soul power had increased significantly again. After all, they had only been separated for a short period of time. Before Jidong's accident, Chun Sichuan's soul had not been able to sense his soul like this. It was obvious that the changes that had happened in the past 18 days had caused him to improve again. With the help of that trace of divine sense, Chun Sixuan's senses were extremely sharp. As her soul gradually recovered, she quickly discovered the obvious changes in Ji Dong's body. The powerful Emperor's Dragon aura of the Ancestor Dragon could not be concealed from the Earth Dragon Ancestor. Chapter 499. Chun Sixuan quickly discovered that Ji Dong had a superficial understanding of the power of light. This discovery surprised her even more than when she discovered that Ji Dong had the draconic aura of the Earth Dragon Ancestor. From the changes in Ji Dong's body to everything she felt before her soul dissipated, Chun Sixuan had a complete understanding of what had happened to Ji Dong. She did not understand why the Earth Dragon Ancestor was so fond of Ji Dong, even going so far as to let him soak in his own dragon blood. However, there was no doubt that this was an irreplaceable help to Ji Dong's growth. One should not assume that the Earth Dragon Ancestor's body was huge, that he had a lot of blood. In fact, it was the exact opposite. Chun Sixuan knew that because the Earth Dragon Ancestor had lived for so many years, most of the blood in his body had been replaced by energy. The remaining blood was probably not even 1/10 of the blood of an ordinary dragon. This blood was the true essence that the Earth Dragon Ancestor had accumulated over thousands of years. Although Ji Dong's mana did not increase much because of this, his body had been forcefully raised to the Saint tier by the Earth Dragon Ancestor's dragon blood. It was even more helpful than directly raising his mana to the level of 9 crowns. As Chun Sixuan's soul undulations became stronger and more autonomous, Ji Dong's anxious heart finally relaxed. He gradually released the shackles he had on Chun Sixuan's soul. His soul slowly withdrew, and he returned control of his body to her. Of course, he did not stop injecting life force into Chun Sixuan's body. Although he was returning control of his body, Ji Dong did not relax his attention on Chun Sixuan. His exclusive light still enveloped both of their bodies. If anything happened to Chun Sixuan, he would be able to react immediately. Finally, Ji Dong felt that Chun Sixuan's soul had regained control of her body. Everything was developing in a good direction. The relaxation in his heart made him feel even more tired. However, he could not care about himself at this time. He had to wait until Chun Sixuan had completely stabilized before he could relax and rest. Chun Sixuan's recovery speed was faster than Ji Dong had imagined. As her soul recovered, she successfully regained control of her body. Her life force no longer flowed out of her body, and she absorbed the enormous life force from the core of life. Her vital signs had returned to normal. Ji Dong, thank you. I'm fine now. Hurry up and recover. Chun Sixuan's emotions were transmitted to Ji Dong's soul. Now, he could finally relax. The golden red light in the eyes of the heavenly stem holy apostles gradually receded, revealing Ji Dong and Chun Sixuan. Ji Dong's complexion was frighteningly pale, just like Chun Sixuan's previously sealed face. His body swayed slightly, and he sat cross-legged on the ground. Chun Sixuan's perfect complexion gradually became rosy, and she no longer lost her life, aura, and soul. Seeing this, the heavenly stem holy apostles finally relaxed. They understood that Ji Dong had succeeded. Chun Sixuan moved. Her eyes were still closed, but she slowly sat down opposite Ji Dong. She also closed her eyes and entered a state of cultivation. Why has teacher Ji Dong's hair turned black? Only then did everyone notice the change in the color of Ji Dong's hair. Du Xener couldn't help but exclaim. Lon Bauer said softly, "It's not as simple as his hair turning black. Other parts of him seem to have changed as well. I don't know what exactly it is, but he's different from before." At that moment, her feelings were very complicated. The moment Ji Dong walked towards Chun Sixuan, she once again felt the urgency from Ji Dong. It was not an ordinary urgency, but a feeling of extreme concern. The last time she felt this from Ji Dong, he was with the flaming bar. In order to save Chun Sixuan, Ji Dong had made himself so weak. Looking at Chun Sixuan's perfect face, the last shred of hope in her heart gradually faded. She knew that she would never be able to enter Ji Dong's heart. She just didn't know how much Chun Sichuan had entered his heart. Ajin stared straight at Ji-dong. Even though she had regained her memory, she still gave others a cold feeling on the surface, perhaps because she was used to the coldness in the past. Among the crowd, she felt it the most, apart from the Dragon Emperor. From Ji-dong's body, she could clearly sense a bloodline aura that was extremely similar to hers. That was her father's aura. She could vaguely understand the changes in Ji-dong's body. The Dragon Emperor said softly, "Don't disturb them. Let them cultivate for a while, and they should be able to recover. Elder Ajin, when Ji-dong wakes up, please tell him that I represent the Dragon Tribe and would like to invite him to become the Dragon Tribe's foreign elder." Ajin was not surprised by the Dragon Emperor's decision. She nodded at the Dragon King and said, "He will agree." The Dragon Emperor smiled and said, "To be honest, I am a little jealous of this boy. But since he is back, it is probably time for you to leave." Ajin nodded and said, "If Sichuan is fine, I think it is time for us to leave." While they were talking, Ji-dong and Chun Sichuan, who were cultivating, were also talking to each other. "Sichuan, are you okay?" Ji-dong relaxed his mind and allowed his soul force to recover on its own. At the same time, he fused with Chun Sichuan's soul. The fusion gave him a strong sense of satisfaction. It was as if he had found something extremely precious that he had lost. "I'm fine. Thank you, Ji-dong, for helping me recover. I thought I would never see you again." Chun Sichuan's soul was also extremely happy. It was a perfect result to be able to recover her soul, and it was Ji-dong who helped her recover. Moreover, she could now deeply feel Ji-dong's concern for her. This feeling was very precious to her. "No, Sichuan, don't say that. No, Sixian, don't say that. I should be the one thanking you. You became like this because you saved me, but I only found out after such a long time. If Senior Dragon Emperor hadn't sealed your body in time, I'm afraid that there would have been no way to save you. You're too foolish. Why would the Earth Dragon ancestor do anything to me? You..." Ji-dong couldn't continue after saying that. He realized that his heart was twitching slightly. This feeling caused him to hurriedly withdraw his thoughts. He was secretly shocked. Could it be that I really have feelings for her? No, it can't be. I only love the flaming bar, and I only love the flaming bar. Chun Sichuan fell silent for a moment before she said faintly, "Perhaps I was confused because I was too concerned. I sensed your aura on the verge of death. How could I think calmly at that time? So I rushed over immediately. I'm very silly, but I'll only be silly because of you." Ji-dong almost could not suppress his heart when he heard her words. He hurriedly changed the topic and said, "Sichuan, your soul has been reunited. Do you still have any problems?" Chun Sichuan said, "The soul is the most mysterious part of a person. How would I know if there's any problem with my soul? However, my soul has been shattered. I'm afraid it'll take a long time for it to completely reunite. As long as I don't use any powerful spiritual attacks in the future, there shouldn't be any big problems, right?" Ji-dong said, "Don't worry. With me by your side, if there's any problem with your soul, I'll be able to react immediately. With today's experience, it'll be much easier to deal with similar problems in the future." Chun Sichuan said softly, "Will you protect me by my side forever?" Ji-dong fell silent. He could not answer such a simple question from Chun Sichuan. In this silence, the two of them gradually immersed themselves in their respective states of cultivation. The golden-red, geocentric red lotus life lotus seeds flew out from between Chun Sichuan's eyebrows one by one and returned to Ji-dong's body. Naturally, Ji-dong did not know that the 9 lotus seeds had returned under Chun Sichuan's forceful coercion. Otherwise, after sensing the flaming bar's divine sense, the 9 lotus seeds would naturally merge with Chun Sichuan. Even if their attributes were incompatible, they would still be of great help to Chun Sichuan. After all, no one was more familiar with the 9 lotus seeds than she was. About 8 hours later, Ji-dong was the first to awaken from his state of cultivation. With the strength of his soul, a quiet rest would allow him to recover in a short period of time. His soul power had already formed its own system. Although he did not know how to cultivate it specifically, he just needed to calm his heart and chi to circulate the system of his soul. After opening his eyes, Ji Dong sensed the undulations of Chun Sichuan's soul. She was very calm and was still in a state of cultivation. Although Ji Dong had seen that perfect face countless times, he could not help but feel his heart skip a beat when he looked at it from such a close distance. Chun Sichuan was currently in a good state. At least on the surface, there seemed to be no problems with her body. This made Ji Dong heave a huge sigh of relief. He murmured in his heart, "I'm sorry, Sichuan. I can't protect you forever, but I can promise you that I will do my best to protect you before I go looking for the flaming bar. I'm afraid I'll never be able to repay you for everything you've done for me. I can only try my best to repay you. Do you know that I really don't want to go looking for the flaming bar because of what I owe you? I'll definitely do my best to repay you." With a thought, the air had already lifted his body up. At this moment, the heavenly stem saints had gathered around the two of them and were also in a state of cultivation. As Jijua stood up, Fury, who was sitting close to him, slowly opened his eyes. Hyoheim looked over, then pointed outside. Ji Dong nodded knowingly. The two of them silently rose into the air and landed lightly in the distance. With a few steps, they were already outside the cave. Phew! Ji Dong spread his arms and took a deep breath of the fresh air in the Dragon Valley. He felt that his limbs and bones were filled with explosive power. As he stretched his body, his skin naturally glowed with a faint golden-red luster. Fury's sigh resounded right beside Ji Dong's ears. "Little junior brother, do you know? After you came back this time, I feel that there's already a gap between us." Ji Dong turned around and looked at Fury in surprise. "Senior brother, why do you say that?" Fury chuckled and said, "It's just a feeling. Maybe it's because we're too familiar with each other. I heard from Si Xian that you've already broken through to the 8th crown. This time, the light that you're emitting is already beyond my understanding. Even Ajin can't explain it clearly. Not only you, Ajin's cultivation has also surpassed mine." "Oh." Ji Dong looked at Fury in surprise. "I can imagine that Ajin's cultivation has improved, but it might not surpass yours. Perhaps it's because her dragon bloodline has awakened that you have this feeling. But, senior brother, don't forget that Ajin doesn't have a mouth. She's merged with her dragon. That's why you have this feeling." Fury chuckled and said, "You're wrong. It's not that Ajin doesn't have a mouth. She just doesn't want to be bound by it. Do you know what level Ajin's cultivation has reached? Her mana is already at level 89. Without a doubt, she'll be the first among us to break through to the 9th crown. Speaking of which, I'm a little jealous." Although he said he was jealous, his expression was obviously very excited. Ji Dong smiled and said, "Senior brother, why do you look so happy? Do you really want to be surpassed by us?" Fury smiled and said, "Of course I do. If you can surpass me, it will prove that the heavenly stem saints have become stronger. In the near future, when we face Li Yonghao and the others, we will have a higher chance of winning. How can I not be happy? Moreover, I've always been the strongest in my generation. Junior brother, it's lonely at the top. I can't see my own goal. I know that as long as I continue to cultivate, I will definitely be able to break through to the 9th crown. That's why I don't have more motivation to cultivate. However, ever since I had you, I saw your mana level approaching mine step by step. Only then did I feel a sense of crisis. If it wasn't for your existence, I wouldn't have been able to break through so quickly. My mana is now at level 85, and I'm only in my early 30s. In the history of the magic world, this is definitely an extraordinary achievement. Of course, I believe that you will definitely surpass me." Ji Dong laughed and said, "Senior brother, I didn't expect you to have such a good attitude. I was afraid that you would be mentally unbalanced." Fury said, "There's nothing to be mentally unbalanced about. A person's strength is determined by their own effort and luck. Luck itself is also a part of strength." Chapter 500. Fury Hyoheim asked, "Little junior brother, what's your next plan? We've already completed 2 of the 3 tests proposed by the foolish Rich Chamber of Commerce. We've already obtained the Dragon King's scales. Although they shed their scales during their evolution, it's enough to hand them over to the foolish Rich Chamber of Commerce. What's more, the Dragon Emperor also expressed his hope that you can become the foreign elder of the Dragon Clan when you are cultivating." Ji Dong said seriously, I must become the foreign elder. This time, it's all thanks to the Earth Dragon ancestor that I can improve so much. If the Dragon Clan encounters any danger in the future, I will not shirk my duty. As for what to do next, I already have a plan. It's time to go to the core of the Earth. Fury smiled and said, after cultivating here for so long, everyone can't stand the loneliness. During this period of time, everyone has improved a lot. They can't wait to test their progress in actual combat. It's time to leave the Dragon Valley. Fury was right. During this period of time, it was not only Ji Dong and Ah Jin who had improved. In terms of the degree of improvement, some even surpassed Ji Dong, Ah Jin, and the others. After all, Ji Dong, Ah Jin, and Fury were the most powerful among the Heavenly Stem Saints. Their base number was already so high, it was much more difficult for them to continue to improve. For people like Du Ming, Du Ixin, Lon Bauer, and the others, their cultivation was not high, and they didn't have mounts before. But this time, not only did their magic power level increase a lot, they also had their own mounts, which increased their strength exponentially. Although it had only been less than a year, the overall strength of the Heavenly Stem Saints had made a huge leap. Ji Dong was confident that no single Devil Master in the Radiant Five Elements continent could defeat them when they joined forces. Only Saint-level experts like the Earth Dragon Ancestor and the Dragon Emperor could compete with them when they joined forces. Fury was right. The results of cultivation needed to be tested by actual combat. Senior brother, I've heard from the Earth Dragon Ancestor that the core world is an extremely dangerous place. Even with his cultivation, he described it in such a way. It's obvious that the core world isn't simple. I've only been to the 18th floor, where Raging Flames lives, and I don't know much about other places. We must be careful when we go there this time. However, I've heard Raging Flames say that the deeper we go, the more dangerous it gets and the stronger the creatures that live there will be. Therefore, I've decided that after we enter the core world, we won't be in a hurry to go deeper. We'll gradually adapt to each floor, and we'll also start to hone everyone's ability to cooperate. Completing the Foolish Rich Merchant Guild's test is secondary. The most important thing is to improve everyone's coordination, and at the same time, we'll be able to better use the 5 elements mutual generation and circulation formation in actual combat. Fury nodded and smiled. That's what I mean too. To put it bluntly, there aren't many places on the mainland that are suitable for us to train. The core world is a very good choice. I'm afraid that other than there really isn't any other place that is suitable for us to train. You might not know this, but recently, the Dragon Kings in the Dragon Valley have banned the Dragon Tribe from fighting with us. Why? Ji Dong was puzzled. Fury laughed. Of course they're afraid that we'll get used to using them for training and keep looking for them. Even without the Dragon King's orders, ever since the Maotai and Wulianya liquor started wreaking havoc, the high-level dragon tribes have been avoiding us. Moreover, since everyone has such a good relationship with each other, it's impossible for them to go all out in actual combat. They'll hold back, so the battle will be meaningless and of limited use. Ji Dong came to a realization. I see. We've been bothering them for too long. However, other than the core world, I have a better place to train. However, we'll have to wait until we come out of the core world. There's a better place? Fury scratched his head. Why can't I think of it? Where is it? Ji Dong chuckled. It's a secret for now. Anyway, I'll make sure you're satisfied when the time comes. You brat, you're still keeping secrets from me. All right, I won't ask anymore. Since you've already planned it out, let's get ready when Si Xian wakes up. Oh, right, how's Si Xian doing? Can she fight with us? Ji Dong nodded. There shouldn't be a problem. Her soul has been reintegrated, although it's still a little unstable. As long as she doesn't actively attack with her soul, she won't be affected. I can fuse my soul with her and protect her soul. Fury nodded. The smile on his face disappeared. He patted Ji Dong's shoulder and said, Little junior brother, Si Xian is a good girl. Flaming Bar has been dead for more than 2 years. We can't live in sadness and memories forever. We have to look forward. Do you understand? Ji Dong smiled faintly. Senior brother, can you forget senior sister Xin? Fury's face darkened. Ji Dong realized that he had said something wrong. He quickly apologized. I'm sorry, senior brother. I didn't mean to bring up your sad past. Fury waved his hand. It's okay. I know you mean no harm. To be honest, I really can't forget EXIN. I can't forget her for the rest of my life. However, I believe that if she's watching from the heavens, she won't be willing to see me wallow in sadness. I will always keep her in my heart. In my heart, there will always be a high ground that belongs to her. This position will never be replaced by anyone. However, I can't wallow in this sadness anymore. There are still many things I need to do. Ji Dong was moved. So, senior brother, you've accepted Meow Meow's feelings? Fury shook his head. No, I'm just saying that I won't be sad about Yi Xion's death anymore. However, it's not easy for me to accept other women. Ji Dong smiled. Then why are you still trying to persuade me? Fury sighed. Junior brother, you're different from me. You're much more stubborn than I am. Don't think that I can't tell what you're thinking just because you have a smile on your face every day. Your dedication to the flaming bar far exceeds my love for Yi Xian. The pain in your heart is also greater than mine. From the depths of your eyes, I can often see the loneliness and emptiness that you're trying to hide. It's only because you have too many burdens on your shoulders that you're trying to adjust yourself. However, your heart isn't happy, or should I say, it's always filled with sadness. Ji Dong stared at Fury blankly. He didn't expect his senior brother, who rarely spoke, to know so much about him. Junior brother, I really hope that you can relax. Other than the flaming bar, you still have me as your senior brother, master, mistress, and grandmaster who care about you. You still have friends like us, the heavenly stem holy disciples, don't you? You have to pull yourself together for us. If the flaming bar saw you like this, I don't know how heartbroken they would be. Ji Dong couldn't maintain the smile on his face anymore. He became silent. Senior brother, you're right. I'm different from you. You and senior sister Yi Xin aren't a romantic relationship. She's your lover. However, the flaming bar isn't just my lover to me. It's not an exaggeration to say that the flaming bar gave me all the achievements I have today and everything I have now. To me, the flaming bar is my lover, my teacher, and even my mother. Do you know that? If it wasn't for her, I would have been eliminated in the first year of the Fire Academy of the Southern Fire Empire. I was born with a balanced body of yin and yang, so it was impossible for me to cultivate. One day, I accidentally opened the indefinite teleportation scroll on Dean Yang Bingtian's desk. It sent me to the 18th level of the core world and let me meet her. From that day on, my fate changed. I was never a genius. Everything I have was given to me by the flaming bar. Without her help, no matter how hard I worked, I would only be a useless person. Not to mention that I met you, teacher, master's wife, and master's ancestor. It was the flaming bar that gave me the brilliance of my life. It was the flaming bar that gave me everything I have now. It can be said that the most important thing in my life isn't myself, but the flaming bar. I love her. She's too important in my heart. She even died because of me. How can I let go of this feeling? The time I spent with her was the happiest time of my life. She's gone, and my heart has also been taken away by her. I'm just a heartless person now. What's left in this world is only a shell. You're right, I still have too many responsibilities on my shoulders and the wish of the flaming bar. If it wasn't for this, I would have followed her when the flaming bar left. I wouldn't have waited until now. At this point, Ji Dong's face was already covered with tears, and his body was trembling nonstop. Ever since the flaming bar died, this was the first time he had poured out his heart to someone else. His longing and feelings for the flaming bar erupted like a volcano. With a flick of his wrist, a bottle of strong alcohol appeared in his grasp. He flicked the cap off the bottle with his thumb and poured the alcohol down his throat in big mouthfuls, using the rising heat of the alcohol to soothe his aching heart. Fu Pu was silent. He looked at Ji Dong and could not say a word. The heavenly stem holy disciples had appeared outside the cave and were looking at Ji Dong silently. Chun Sichuan, who had just woken up from her cultivation, was also among them. Meow Meow stood next to Chun Sichuan and hugged her tightly. She whispered, Sichuan, you have to pull yourself together. Your injuries have just healed. From the day you fell in love with him, you should have known what kind of person he was. Chun Sichuan stood there and looked at Ji Dong. Her eyes were already blurred, and her body, which was being held by Meow Meow, was terrifyingly stiff. Meow Meow was so scared that she thought Ji-dong had angered her to the point where her old injuries were about to relapse. Fury tightened his grip on Ji-dong's shoulder and signaled him with his eyes. Ji-dong could naturally sense the arrival of his companions behind him. He silently raised his hand and wiped his face to get rid of the tear stains. With his cultivation, as long as he controlled the air to remove the tear stains from his face, there would not be a single trace left. Of course, Meow Meow was also worried about him. Previously, when he was triggered by fury and said those words, when he felt that Chen Sichuan was behind him, he could no longer stop his emotions. At this moment, his heart was filled with regret. He did not want to hurt Chen Sichuan, especially when he owed Chen Sichuan so much. Turning around, Ji-dong's gaze fell directly on Chen Sichuan's lifeless face. When he saw two streams of tears rolling down her beautiful face, he could not help but feel his heart tighten. He took 2 steps forward and was already in front of her. Meow Meow, who was holding Chen Sichuan, glared at him and said, "Ji-dong, I don't want to criticize you, but we all know that you love the flaming bar deeply. But can you stop talking about it? Xixian's body has just recovered. Are you deliberately trying to provoke her? You've gone too far. Even if you don't want to accept her feelings, you can't hurt her like this. We all know how much Xixian has sacrificed for you." "I'm sorry, Xixian." Ji-dong slowly lowered his head and looked at Chen Sichuan with concern. He sensed the changes in her emotions so that he could immediately rescue her if something was wrong with her soul. Emotions gradually appeared on Chen Sichuan's lifeless face. She gently broke free from Meow Meow's embrace and took a step forward, getting closer to Ji-dong. She was only a foot away from him. The Heavenly Stem holy disciples could not help but feel nervous. They did not know what Chen Sichuan was going to do. In Meow Meow's opinion, if it were her, she would definitely slap Chen Sichuan and run away. Chen Sichuan was not Meow Meow. She would not do that. She reached out with both hands and slowly lifted up Ji-dong's right hand. One soft hand held Ji-dong's palm while the other pinched his index finger. She gently wiped away the tears on her face. When Ji-dong felt what she was going to do, he had already taken the initiative to do it. There was no need for her to continue controlling him. He did not understand what Chen Sichuan was thinking at the moment. From her soul, he could not feel any anger or annoyance. Instead, there was a violent fluctuation of emotions that he could not describe. Ji-dong wiped away the tears on Chen Sichuan's face. Chen Sichuan raised her head and looked into his eyes with her teary eyes. She said softly, "Ji-dong, squat down." Beside him, Meow Meow secretly cursed in her heart. Xixian must have thought that he was too tall. It would be more convenient for him to squat down and smoke. This is a good method. If Fury offends me next time, I will also make him squat down. That guy is taller. Squatting down and smoking is just the right height. Ji-dong did not disobey Chen Sichuan. He slowly squatted down in front of her. Until now, no one could tell what Chen Sichuan was thinking or what she was going to do. What was she going to do? The Heavenly Stem holy disciples were all nervous, but they could not stop her. Chapter 501. Ji-dong's words of longing for the flaming bar had spoken his mind, but they were heard by Chen Sichuan as well. Everyone thought that Chen Sichuan would go berserk in the next moment, including Ji-dong. However, Chen Sichuan used Ji-dong's hand to wipe away the tears on her face and said 2 simple words to him: "Squat down." Ji-dong did not go against Chen Sichuan's wishes and slowly squatted down in front of her. As Ji-dong squatted down, Chen Sichuan used her left hand to hold on to Ji-dong's right hand, which had wiped away her tears, and her right hand to hold on to Ji-dong's left hand. When he squatted down in front of her, Chen Sichuan pulled Ji-dong's arms around her waist and naturally moved closer to him. She hugged his head gently and let his face stick to her smooth abdomen. All the Heavenly Stem holy disciples who were waiting to watch the intense scene couldn't help but be dumbfounded at this moment, especially Yao Qianshu, Fury, Du Ming, and the other men. Their jaws almost fell off. How could this work? Expressing his deep love for another woman could also get a hug from his current girlfriend. How did this trick work? In the eyes of everyone, Chen Sichuan was already Ji-dong's actual girlfriend. Even Ji-dong was stunned, and allowed Chun Si-Xuan to hug him like this. Her abdomen was smooth and soft, and the warm feeling and faint fragrance from it made Ji Dong a little dazed. However, Chun Si-Xuan's voice rang in his ears. Ji Dong, I know that you love the flaming bar deeply. I've also accompanied you to pay respects to her twice. I completely understand the pain in your heart. Cry if you want to. Don't worry about me. Why would I blame you for such a thing? I know that you belong to the flaming bar, and everything about you belongs to the flaming bar. I've never thought of snatching you away from her, and I can't. I love you very much, just like how you love her. If your feelings for her change, because of me, perhaps I won't love you as much as I do now. I don't have any extravagant hopes, and you don't have to feel any psychological pressure because of me. She's gone, and I just want to take care of you on her behalf. If it's possible, please treat me as her replacement, okay? A light breeze blew, and the lush plants in the surroundings rustled. The faint fragrance of plants surrounded the heavenly stem holy disciples. At this moment, there was only the rustling of the plants at the entrance of the cave. Apart from Ji Dong, who was being hugged by Chun Si-Xuan, the way the other heavenly stem holy disciples, including Yun Tianji, looked at Chun Si-Xuan changed. A girl loved a man so much that she was willing to be a replacement. Was there any need to say anything else? Even Lan Bauer, who had always been reluctant to get close to Chun Si-Xuan because of Ji Dong, now looked at her with respect. She knew that what Chun Si-Xuan had done was something that she could never do. Chun Si-Xuan had really given up everything for Ji Dong, just like how Ji Dong loved the flaming bar at all costs. Lan Bauer now understood why she did not get any response when Hyoheim expressed her love for the flaming bar. Although Chun Si-Xuan could not affect Ji Dong's love for the flaming bar, she was much closer to him than Lan Bauer. It was because Lan Bauer was not as desperate as Chun Si-Xuan. If there was anyone present who understood why Chun Si-Xuan would do this, it would probably be Ajin. Only she knew Chun Si-Xuan's true identity, and she had always kept this secret, even if she didn't tell her father. These days, she had recovered her memories, and when her father awakened the Dragon Clan's bloodline, she had also gradually merged everything she had experienced after her resurrection with her previous memories. She had long since confirmed her feelings for Ji Dong. Just as Chun Si-Xuan had said, it was precisely because of Ji Dong's deep love for raging flames that she fell in love with him. In Ah Jin's heart, Ji Dong's weight was even heavier than her father's. No matter what, her father was a man of universal love. He had so many women, but Ji Dong had only had one raging flame from beginning to end. She had long since set the right position in her heart. Even if it wasn't for the fact that raging flame had saved her life, she would never do anything to destroy them. They had already suffered too much. Ajin only hoped that they would be able to get married soon, and she would only secretly bless them. Turning around, Ajin was the first to walk towards the cave worm. Fury had also woken up. He waved at the crowd and led the heavenly stem holy disciples back into the cave, leaving Ji Dong and Chun Si-Xuan alone here for a while longer. Releasing his hand from Chun Si-Xuan's waist, Ji Dong grabbed her hands and slowly stood up. He stared at Chun Si-Xuan's teary eyes and said, Si-Xuan, I didn't expect you to know me so well. But the more you know, the more I don't want you to suffer. Ever since I met you, I remember everything you've done for me deeply. But no matter what, I still can't accept your feelings. How can you become a substitute? That's too unfair to you. I'm willing to be a substitute. Chun Si-Xuan threw herself into Ji Dong's arms without a care for anything else. Just now, when she saw Ji Dong's painful expression in front of Fury and listened to his affectionate confession, she only felt that her heart was about to break. She even regretted that she didn't have a better relationship with him when they were still in the flaming bar. But it was too late to say anything now. She was already Chun Si-Xuan, not the flaming bar. Looking at Ji Dong's painful expression, her heart really hurt. Now, she didn't want to force him at all. She just hoped that he could be a little happier. Even if she couldn't be with him in the end, as long as he could be happy, she would be satisfied. Being hugged by Chun Si-Xuan, Ji Dong didn't struggle. He really couldn't bear to do it. Even if he had a heart of stone, he would still be melted by Chun Si-Xuan's feelings. However, just like what he said to Fury previously, he would never betray the flaming bar. No matter how good Qin Shi Xuan was, she was still Qin Shi Xuan, not his flaming bar. Just like that, Ji Dong let Qin Shi Xuan hug him. Tears flowed uncontrollably from his eyes again as he missed his flaming bar. 3 days later, the heavenly stem holy disciples finished resting. Ji Dong and Qin Shi Xuan seemed to have calmed down. Finally, it was time for them to leave the Dragon Valley. There was another important reason why they chose to leave on this day, and that was because Maotai and Wu Yangye had woken up from their slumber and returned to Ji Dong's side. With the help of the blood of the Earth Dragon's ancestor, the sacred evolution fire dragon's body length had already exceeded 20 meters. Putting aside the improvement in their mana, the terrifying increase in their physical strength had already greatly increased their combat power. Ji Dong went to see the Dragon Emperor and the Earth Dragon's ancestor. Jin even stayed with the Earth Dragon's ancestor for the entire night. It was unclear what the father and daughter talked about, but when Jin returned the next day, his eyes were a little red and swollen. Ji Dong and Qin Shi Xuan stood on the dragon heads of Maotai and Wu Yangye respectively. The sacred evolution fire dragon was the first to fly up from the bottom of the Dragon Valley, followed by Fury's purple thunder heavenly dragon, Jin, and the rest of the heavenly stem holy disciples. Even Tianji had his own magical beast partner, which was extremely rare in the Tianji lineage. The one who chose Tianji was a 10th tier diamond dragon, and it was also the only 10th tier magical beast among the group. Moreover, this was not arranged by the Dragon Emperor, but the result of them getting to know each other over the past few days. Only Tianji himself knew what had happened. 11 people and 10 powerful magical beasts soared into the sky at the same time. Even in the Dragon Valley, this was considered a majestic sight. When everyone finally flew above the Dragon Valley under the support of their mounts, the giant dragons in the Dragon Valley appeared one after another, and the majestic scene of thousands of dragons dancing together appeared in front of them again. Deafening dragon roars intertwined in the sky and resounded throughout the entire Three-Harmony mountain range. The Dragon Emperor hovered above the Dragon Valley with the 4 Dragon Kings, facing Ji Dong and the rest. Dragon Emperor, we have to go. I don't know when we'll meet again. Ji Dong no longer addressed the Dragon Emperor as senior. The Dragon Emperor was currently in his human form. He looked at Ji Dong and waved his hand, saying, "If that's the case, then hurry up and leave. Don't be so long-winded." "Yes." Ji Dong nodded and said, "Dragon Emperor, although you're the father of Maotai, Wu Yangye, and Si Dong, I don't see you as a senior in my heart." The Dragon Emperor looked at Ji Dong in confusion. Ji Dong smiled and said, "I see you as a friend. All right, goodbye, my friend. Let's go." The Saint Evolution Fire Dragon looked at his parents reluctantly, then suddenly sped up and flew into the distance like a bolt of lightning. Ji Dong's voice could be heard from afar. "Dragon Emperor, I can't remember how many times you've tortured me, but I'll definitely spar with you again after I've broken through to the 9th crown." The Dragon Emperor's dimmed eyes lit up as a smile appeared on his face. "Brat, I'll be waiting for you." Although the heavenly stem saints flew into the distance with the help of their mounts, their eyes were still fixed in the direction of the Dragon Valley. They had stayed here for almost a year and were deeply attached to everything in the Dragon Valley. Here, all of them had mounts as companions. They had gotten to know many dragons here and had become friends with the dragon race. Now that they really had to leave, everyone's hearts were filled with reluctance. Everyone only retracted their gazes when the Dragon Valley could no longer be seen, but they were still in low spirits. At this moment, a layer of golden red light shone from Ji Dong's body and attracted the attention of the heavenly stem saints. Rays of golden red light accurately landed on the foreheads of the heavenly stem saints. In an instant, their perception increased exponentially, and everything around them seemed to become transparent. This long-lost feeling made everyone's hearts tremble. A large amount of information was transmitted into their minds through the golden light. The direction of the wind blowing in the sky, the strength of the wind, the concentration of the various elements in the air, and the real-time changes were all presented in great detail. Everything within a 3,000-meter radius was also presented. What shocked them the most was that Ji Dong's immense soul energy, which was as vast as the sea, seemed to have engulfed every single one of them. It's been almost a year since we left the foolish rich chamber of commerce. During this year, each of us has put in a lot of effort, and each of us has made great progress. Let's tell each other what level our cultivation has reached. Ji Dong's deep voice rang out in the ears of all of the heavenly stem holy worshippers, as if it had some kind of magical power. Initially, everyone had been a little disappointed by the fact that they had to leave the Dragon Valley. But as his voice gradually became more and more impassioned, they became more and more excited. I, Ji Dong, am a heavenly stem double fire saint. My mana is at level 82. My mount is a sacred evolution fire dragon, rank 9. Ji Dong almost shouted out his level. Being in the sky, they did not need to hold back at all. His shout seemed to be shouting out all the unhappiness and depression in his heart. According to their strength and status, Ajin or Fury should be the next to speak. However, neither of them said anything. Instead, they turned their gazes to Chen Xuan. This was out of respect for Chen Xuan. 3 days ago, Chen Xuan hugged Ji Dong and said those words, which had won everyone over. In everyone's hearts, she was already on the same side as Ji Dong. Chen Xuan didn't decline. She smiled and nodded to her companions. Chen Xuan, Heavenly Stem Imu Holy Disciple. Magic Power. Magic Power. Magic Power. Level 79. Magical Beast Companion. At this time, Xidong was in Chen Xuan's arms. It gently wriggled a bit. Only Ji Dong knew how strong this so-called Xidong was. When he faced Lin Qing and Lin Olay, if it wasn't for Xidong, he would have been killed. Moreover, Xidong usually did not say anything, but in fact, it could talk. At this time, when Chen Xuan mentioned it, it gently wriggled in Chen Xuan's arms to show its existence. Chen Xuan gently stroked it, and the smile on her pretty face became wider. After Chen Xuan announced her level, Ajin and Fury looked at each other. Ajin made a gesture of invitation. Fury nodded and said, Fury, Heavenly Stem, Thunder Saint. Mana, level 85. Mount, Purple, Thunder Sky Dragon. Ajin, Heavenly Stem, Xian Gene Saint. Mana, level 89. Mount, None. Yao Qian Shu, Heavenly Stem, First Wood Saint. Mana, level 81. Mount, Azure Dragon, rank 9. Lang Tian E, Heavenly Stem, 5th Earth Saint. Mana, level 81. Mount Diamond Dragon, rank 9. Meow Meow, Heavenly Stem, 6th Earth Saint. Mana, level 81. Mount Silver Winged Sea Green, rank 9. Chapter 502. Du Ixin Heavenly Stem Gungjin Saint, Magic Power, level 72. Mount Gold Dragon, rank 9. Du Ming, Heavenly Stem Gungshui Saint, Magic Power, level 74. Mount Frost Dragon, rank 9. Lon Bauer, Heavenly Stem Gungshui Saint, Magic Power, level 76. Mount Frost Dragon, rank 9. The last one to speak was Tianji Mount Diamond Dragon, rank 10. As everyone reported their current magic power levels, everyone's confidence and condition were adjusted towards the peak. Their eyes were filled with pride. They had relied on their hard work to obtain their current strength. Even Du Xian who had the lowest magic power, had already reached level 72. All the Heavenly Stem Gungshui Saints had magical beasts that were above rank 9. This kind of strength would be extremely terrifying in any country. Moreover, all of them had ultimate magic power and all 10 attributes, including the ultimate Yang Lightning attribute. Ji Dong, Chen Xuan, Ajin, and Fury even had divine weapons. What they possessed was already a power that even supreme beings would be afraid of. From this moment onwards, the ability to kill the Heavenly Stem Gungshui Saints was truly displayed. Ji Dong's gaze swept across each of his companions, and the golden red light in his eyes shone brightly. He said in a clear voice, Good. This is our unique strength and the result of our many years of hard work. From this moment onwards, we are the saviors of the continent. Everyone is. This is not to boast, but because we will give everything we have for this goal. A person's life only lasts a few decades, and no matter how powerful a demon master is, they only have a few hundred years of life at most. In this limited life, we must live to the fullest and let our lives shine brightly in the long river of history. Next, our goal is the core world. There, I hope that all of us can raise our cultivation to 8 crowns and have our own demon domain. Then, it will be time for us to truly take action for the safety of the radiant 5 elements continent. With just a few simple words, he had already stirred up the emotions of his companions. The sadness caused by leaving the Dragon Valley was gone. The magical beasts collectively sped up and flew in the direction that Ji Dong had pointed out. Their destination this time was Mount Almonds, which was 600 kilometers southwest of Blazing Fire City. There were a few reasons why they chose Mount Almonds instead of the Frost Mountain range that Ji Dong had learned from the Flaming Bar. Firstly, Mount Almonds was the designated entry point for the Foolish Rich Merchant Association. Secondly, the divine beast guarding the entrance to the core world, the 3-legged golden crow, had already been killed by Ji Dong. It was naturally much easier to enter the core world. However, if they wanted to enter from the Frost Mountain range, they would definitely have to kill the Frost Dragon Feng Shuang, a level 10 divine beast. It was not that killing it was difficult, but Ji Dong had soaked his body in its blood before, so he more or less owed it a favor. Furthermore, these divine beasts guarding the entrance to the core world were not as simple as preventing outsiders from entering the core world, but also preventing the creatures from the core world from coming out. Therefore, since they already had the option of entering Mount Almonds where the divine beast had been killed, there was no need to open another passage. If the creatures from the core world descended to the human world, wouldn't it be troublesome? Therefore, after careful consideration, Ji Dong chose Mount Almonds as the entrance to the core world. It was naturally closer to the Southern Fire Empire from the West Jin Empire than from the East Wood Empire. However, the Three Harmony Mountain Range was located at the northernmost border of the West Jin Empire, the North Water Empire, and the Central Earth Empire. Therefore, it was not much closer to the Southern Fire Empire from here. Fortunately, these flying magical beasts were at least level 9. When they sped up in the air, they were as fast as lightning. In addition, the Heavenly Stem Holy Disciples could use the soaring formation in the 5 elements formation to speed them up. After a few days, they had already entered the territory of the Southern Fire Empire. Ji Dong and Chun Sichuan had been to Mount Almonds before. Naturally, they would not go to the wrong place. The Heavenly Evolution Sacred Fire Dragon flew in a straight line towards Mount Almonds. In the distance, Mount Almonds was already in sight. The tall and lonely peak stood proudly. As it had not been long since the lava raged, it was no longer the same as it was when Ji Dong and the others first came here. There were more volcanic ash and rock layers formed by the dried lava. Ji Dong released his soul power. Everyone could see that the golden red light on his body suddenly became more intense. Then, his surging soul power swept in the direction of Mount Almonds in a fan shape. Through the soul scan, Ji Dong realized that there were still some magical beasts on Mount Almonds. However, they were all high-level magical beasts. Furthermore, they could see faint smoke rising from the peak of Mount Almonds. Closer to the peak, the air was clearly distorted by the heat. It was obvious that there had been a new eruption after the previous eruption. However, the scale of the eruption was much smaller. Under the guidance of Ji Dong's soul power, the sacred fire dragon gradually approached the peak of Mount Almonds. The others also controlled their mounts to spread out. This way, everyone would maintain a certain distance from each other. If anything happened, they would be able to unleash their full power. 10 powerful level 9 and 10 magical beasts, most of which were dragons, had descended in the sky above Mount Almonds. The invisible pressure they gave off made the few remaining magical beasts on Mount Almonds not dare to breathe too loudly. All of them vanished, afraid that they would be targeted. When everyone was within 500 meters of the peak of Mount Almonds, they could clearly feel the temperature in the air continue to rise. The fire element also became more intense, while the other magical elements became thinner. Ajin, who was floating in the air, came to the sacred fire dragon's side and said, Ji-dong, Master once told me that the power of the core world is not just because of the many powerful creatures it has. More importantly, the power of the creatures in the core world will increase exponentially. In that place, the fire element is the densest. Apart from that, the other elements are much thinner and can't compare to the outside world. This is also the place that poses the greatest threat. After everyone enters, we must conserve our mana as much as possible. As Jin spoke, her gaze vaguely met Chun Sichuan's for a split second. As the ruler of the core world, no one understood it better than Chun Sichuan. What Jin had said was what Chun Sichuan had told her. With her experience with the flaming bar, Jin was the most suitable mouthpiece. Naturally, no one would doubt this, nor could they doubt it. Hearing her words, everyone's expressions turned solemn. Although every one of them was quite powerful, possessed ultimate mana, and had the support of powerful magical beasts as mounts, there was a limit to the amount of mana that a mage could store in their body. Without the mana in the air to replenish it, their mana would eventually be exhausted. After entering the core world, they had to keep going deeper. According to what Jin had said, the deeper they went, the thinner the mana in the air would be. That way, no matter how high their cultivation was, they would not be able to unleash their full potential. Comparatively speaking, Earth element mages were in a slightly better situation. After all, there was also Earth element in the core world, and fire gave birth to Earth, so they would be less affected. However, it was different for the others. They would be greatly affected and might even lose their ability to fight. Everyone's gazes unconsciously fell on Ji-dong, but they did not see any nervousness on Ji-dong's face. With a smile, Ji-dong said, I've already considered this problem carefully. Jin is right. The deeper we go into the core world, the denser the fire element will be, and the weaker the other elements will be. At the deepest layer, the 18th layer, there are no other elements other than the fire element. The fire element there is so dense that it even feels like ultimate mana. If that's the case, why are you still smiling? Fury asked gloomily. Ji-dong smiled. Because I've already thought of a solution to this problem. Fury was stunned, and the others could not help but be surprised. You've already thought of a solution? What can we do if there are no mana elements in the air? Do we rely on the magical beast cores? That's too much. Whether it was him or the others, they could not think of a solution to the problem of a lack of mana elements in the core world. Ji Xing shook his head and said, Of course we can't use the crystal cores of magical beasts. Putting aside the fact that we don't have many crystal cores on us, even if we had enough, we wouldn't be able to maintain our fighting strength at all times. We still need time to absorb them. My method is suitable for everyone except you. Senior brother, you have the divine armament, the Thunder Divine Axe. With it, and the help of the 5 elements yin-yang world, you should be able to recover your mana. Fury nodded and said, As long as the 5 elements yin-yang boundary exists, I can naturally use the Hell Thunder Divine Axe to help me replenish my mana. However, you haven't told me how to get others to solve the problem. Ji-dong smiled. Actually, I've already taught you this method. Have you forgotten about our 5 elements cycle formation? This 5 elements engendering cycle formation isn't only used in battle, it can also be used in cultivation. That's right, the Earth's core has very few elements other than the fire element, but it's enough as long as there is fire element. After entering the Earth's core, we will immediately complete the engendering cycle. I can continuously absorb the fire element in the air and then transfer it to you, creating a mutual engendering effect that will keep your mana at its peak. As long as your mana doesn't run out, with the help of the engendering mana, why would you need to absorb any external elements? In other words, it's equivalent to me absorbing the fire element and using the 5-element cycle formation to transform it into the mana element that you need. It's precisely because of this that I've never been in a hurry to let everyone practice the 5-element cycle formation. Now that we're in the core world, we have to use it even if we don't want to. With this experience, everyone will definitely be familiar with this formation. Everyone couldn't help but be dumbfounded after hearing Ji-dong's explanation. They looked at him as if they were looking at a monster. So it turned out that he had already planned all of this. So it turned out that he had already prepared for a rainy day. Yao Qianshu let out a breath of turbid air. No wonder Tianji said that you're a saint king. Even if you beat me to death, I wouldn't have thought of this method. So the 5-element cycle formation can be used in this way. In other words, as long as there's a mana element present, none of us will need to worry about the problem of mana drying up. This 5 elements cycle formation of yours is practically a miracle. Everyone nodded in agreement after hearing Yao Qinshu's words. Even Chen Xishuan had not been able to think of a way to solve this problem before. Only after hearing Ji Dong's words did she understand what he was thinking. Everyone's solemn expressions were immediately replaced with relief. Miao Miao said, "Then what are we waiting for? Let's enter the core world quickly." Ji Dong replied, "There's no rush. You all wait here first. I'm of the fire element, so I'll scout the path and find the entrance first. Also, there's something we need to do before we enter." As he spoke, the sacred evolution fire dragon's body had already swayed, flying towards the peak of Almond's mountain below. Chen Xishuan stood on the head of the 5 grains liquor, so she naturally went down with Ji Dong. She asked curiously, "Ji Dong, you said there's something else we need to do. What is it?" Ji Dong glanced at her. Ever since that day, the two of them had become closer. Although Ji Dong had deliberately kept his distance from Chen Xishuan could feel that he actually had no resistance against her. It was only because his heart was already filled with the flaming bar that he could not tolerate Chen Xishuan. Every time she recalled how Ji Dong was in so much pain because of the flaming bar, she no longer had any other requests. She only hoped that they could continue to be like this. She would be satisfied as long as she could be by his side. The sacred evolution fire dragon descended and a faint halo of extreme flames was released from its body, protecting Ji Dong, Chen Xishuan, and itself. At that moment, they had already entered the smoke above the volcano. Ji Dong had lived 2 lives, so of course he knew that the smoke was poisonous. Although they did not care about the poison at their cultivation level, it was still better to be careful. At that moment, a strong sense of danger suddenly appeared in Ji Dong's soul.